Chapter 164. Ning Shu didn't know where Wen Ruhua's sense of superiority came from. She looked down on He Xiaohua, who liked him, as if he was some kind of noble person. Tsk. She was actually an ignorant person. He Dahua pointed at Wen Ruhua with her fan and said viciously, "If anything happens to my sister, I will bury you alive. I will do what I say. The villagers don't dare to say anything. Who do you think you are?" He Dahua turned back to Ning Shu and said, "Beauty, go to Brother Dahua's house. This kind of person is too disgusting. Go comfort your sister," Ning Shu said. He Dahua went to chase after her sister. Ning Shu glanced at Wen Ruhua and turned to go into the tent. Wen Ruhua stopped him and said with a cold face, "Ning Shu, we need to talk." Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and looked at Wen Ruhua. "Cousin, what's the matter? Have you decided to study seriously and take the imperial exam?" "Don't mention the imperial exam. I will never take it in my life. What I want to say is that you have to be careful of your image. Do you know what the villagers are saying about you? They are saying that you are not a woman, and that you use your beauty to seduce men. The children in the school all ask me why there is such a woman in the teacher's house. How do you want me to behave in front of the students? By Qinxiang, if you are so unscrupulous and unrestrained, you should leave He village. This place is not suitable for you. The brothel is not suitable for you." When Ruhua said a lot, Ning Shu just said, "Your students still don't know that you are reading a book about a scholar and a prostitute. If they know, how will they look at you?" When Ruhua's face instantly turned green, Ning Shu roared, "By Qinxiang, I am talking about you. Don't change the topic." Ning Shu didn't want to talk to Wen Ruhua at all. He bent down and went into the tent. Wen Ruhua was just a man who pretended to be righteous. He could do anything, but others couldn't. He could do whatever he wanted, but others couldn't. Wen Ruhua looked down on women in every way, and was a straight man. Tisk. By Qinxiang you. Cousin, Qinxiang is tired. Qinxiang wants to rest. Cousin is a gentleman. You wouldn't stand guard outside Qinxiang's tent. Cousin wouldn't do such a shameless thing. Ning Shu yawned. Outside the tent, Wen Ruhua's expression was ugly. She had a dark aura around her, and her eyes were dark. It was as if she wanted to look through the tent and see Ning Shu. Wen Ruhua snorted coldly. She walked into the house and slammed the door shut. In the tent, Yuelon, Ning Shu said, "Miss, let's go. Why do we always meet some strange people?" The male lead was just this willful and inexplicable. When it's time to leave, your miss will naturally know to leave. Now is not the time. Ning Shu yawned and closed his eyes to sleep. Ning Shu didn't take Wen Ruhua's words to heart. When he was bored, he would climb the mountain with the He siblings or catch fish in the river. His life was very carefree. He Xiaohua found a chance to ask Ning Shu, "Why doesn't Wen Ruhua like me?" Ning Shu chewed on a wild fruit and said to He Xiaohua, "Why do you want him to like you? Wen Ruhua has nothing but a body. He can't give you a stable life. He can't even support himself. How can he support you and your child? Also, Wen Ruhua's personality was really too awkward. It was tiring to live with such a person." He Xiaohua said shyly, "I actually don't need him to support me. Anyway, he's alone. I want him to marry into our family. My father also agrees." Puffed. Ning Shu spat out the wild fruit in his mouth. Wen Ruhua probably felt humiliated to marry into their family. Ning Shu patted He Xiaohua's shoulder. "Good luck." Under normal circumstances, Wen Ruhua wouldn't agree to it unless he used some special means. Ning Shu came back from climbing the mountain and saw Wen Ruhua standing in the courtyard with a dark face. She was about to explode. "By Qinxiang, you keep saying that you're here to supervise my imperial examination, but I think you're here to seduce men. Now you're going around with flower he, and you're not avoiding suspicion anymore. By Qinxiang, I really misjudged you in the past. You're so shameless. Do you lack men that much? If you really can't do it, I'll satisfy you." Ning Shu's body shook when he heard this. Wasn't this what Wen Ruhua said to Mu Yanluo in the plot? She was by Qinxiang now. "If you don't know how to behave yourself, I'll satisfy you." When Ruhua snorted coldly, she brushed past Ning Shu and left. Ning Shu looked at Wen Ruhua's back and felt that Wen Ruhua might have been provoked by her. However, she didn't do anything. It was when Ruhua who was controlling and didn't allow her to interact with He Xiaohua. Ning Shu felt that it was necessary to think about her safety. Ning Shu walked into the central room and saw the ancestral sword hanging on the wall. Well, I'll use this to protect myself. Ning Shu hid the sword in the tent. Yuelan looked at Ning Shu and asked, Miss, what are you doing? Putting the weapon beside the bed. These things have a murderous aura. It's easy to have nightmares at night. It's okay. Your miss is strong. Your miss also has a chest. Ning Shu lifted her chest with her hand. Yuelan was speechless. Miss, why don't you call the shadow guard in? Yuelan asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu waved her hand. When Ruhua is a weakling, I can deal with her with one finger. There's no need to call your brother shadow guard in. Do you miss him? You can go to the village entrance to see him. Yuelan stomped her feet. Miss, what nonsense are you talking about? There's nothing between me and the shadow guard. You make it sound like there's something between us. Ning Shu drank water and looked at Yuelan seriously. Your miss, I really hope that there's something between you and the shadow guard. You'll have someone to rely on in the future. Miss, you're my support. Well, men are unreliable. Without your support, the shadow guard will bully me. Yuelan said. Ning Shu sighed in her heart. She really hoped that something would happen between her big brother and little sister Yuelan. Beauty, save me. Save your brother Dahua. Dahua ran over. The fat on her body was trembling. When she ran, it felt like the entire ground was shaking. She was like a meatball running over. Ning Shu spat out a mouthful of tea. Dahua ran in front of Ning Shu and plopped down on the chair. The chair squeaked as it couldn't bear the weight. Dahua panted. Her breathing was rough like someone snoring. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. Are you being chased? It's scarier than being chased. Only you can help me. Dahua squeezed out tears and looked at Ning Shu. Chapter 165. Ning Shu saw that Dahua's face was so wrinkled that her eyes couldn't be seen. He asked, What's the matter? Dahua stretched out her chubby hand, wanting to hold Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu immediately picked up the teacup and stuffed it into Dahua's hand. Beauty, seeing that we're so compatible, why don't you marry me? I think our personalities are very compatible. We're both people who don't care about trifles, unrestrained and love freedom. Dahua looked at Ning Shu and howled. My father wants me to get married. Otherwise he'll kick me out of the He family village. Ning Shu pursed his lips. When did we get along? At most, we're just friends who drink and eat. We're just acquaintances who hunt wild hares in the mountains. You want me to marry you? Can you be more reliable? Ning Shu said angrily. You can choose any girl in the He family village. Besides, you're so ugly. What if you affect the children? Ning Shu bluntly attacked Dahua. Dahua's chubby hand slapped the elephant leg. Ning Shu said, Beauty, do you know what I like the most about you? I like your sense of humor. In the entire He family village, which man is more outstanding than me? Ning Shu was speechless. Yuelan raised her eyebrows and snorted at Dahua. How can my miss marry you? My miss is the prime minister. Ahem. Ning Shu coughed and interrupted Yuelan. Yuelan anxiously stomped her feet and pursed her lips. Miss, are you really going to marry this person? Hee. Yuelan didn't know how to describe Dahua. Beauty, don't worry. As long as you marry your big brother Dahua, you'll be in charge of everything. The chickens, ducks, and fish in the house will all be yours. I'll also be yours. Dahua patted her chest until the fat on her chest trembled. I forbid it. When Ruhua's voice suddenly rang out, Dahua immediately turned to look at her. Which bastard said no? If I say yes, it's okay. When Ruhua was so angry that her face turned ashen, Ning Shu mocked. By Qinxiang, you're really scheming. It's only been a few days, and you're able to make the village bully marry an abandoned woman like you. He even gave you the family's property. You're not just a little vain. When Ruhua looked at Ning Shu with red eyes. By Qinxiang, you're using me again. You're treating me as a ladder for you to climb up. Dahua's eyebrows as eyebrows. You can understand what he's talking about. I don't understand him understands what he's talking about. Yours your taste sees your taste zest. S. When Ruhua looked at Dahua with disdain. Your taste is just like that. You actually took a fancy to an abandoned woman who was chased out of the house. He Dahua spat at Wen Ruhua and raised his chin. It's none of your business what kind of woman I marry. It's none of your business what my taste is like. I'll marry whoever I want. Wen Ruhua was disgusted by He Dahua's spitting. She felt insulted and snorted coldly. She turned and went back into the house, slamming the door. He Dahua looked at Ning Shu and said, Beauty, Brother Dahua values you as a person. Your past has nothing to do with me. You're the first person I like. You're boorish and unrestrained. Our personalities are quite good. I don't want to marry a bashful woman. Sigh. Ning Shu felt that He Dahua was quite interesting. He wasn't a good person, but he wasn't a bad person either. He had a high status in the He family village. He had his own principles and was very sly. This kind of man wouldn't be taken advantage of. He was a little scheming, but his thoughts weren't bad. It was just that his looks were a little shabby. He couldn't survive in a world where looks were important. Ning Shu looked at He Dahua with pity. If this kind of man had the ability to climb up, he would definitely be a noble. His personality was completely different from the stubborn Wen Ruhua. Ning Shu felt that a man should be sly and thick-skinned to live a better life. Beauty, think about it. Give me your answer in a few days. He Dahua fanned himself and walked away. It was completely different from when he came in with snot and tears. A toad wants to eat swan meat. Miss, that He Dahua doesn't even look at himself. He actually wants you to marry him, Yuelon said disdainfully. Ning Shu didn't care. He said indifferently, how can one predict life's opportunities? He's like this now. Maybe after a few decades he'll be different. Some people couldn't be bullied, but people like Wen Ruhua could be bullied casually. One look, and one could tell that she wouldn't have any future. The sky darkened. Ning Shu and Yuelon were eating when the door creaked open. Wen Ruhua came out of the room. Wen Ruhua walked over and scooped a bowl of porridge for herself. She ate silently. After eating, she put down the bowl and chopsticks and asked with a sullen face, Are you really going to marry He Dahua? Ning Shu poked the food in his bowl with his chopsticks and said indifferently, Why not? Wen Ruhua sneered, Don't tell me you don't know what kind of person He Dahua is? Ning Shu nodded. Of course I know what kind of person He Dahua is. Wen Ruhua suddenly became agitated. Since you know what kind of person He Dahua is, you're going to marry someone like him? He's a tyrant in the village. Ning Shu pursed his lips. Why can't I marry him? Let's not talk about whether He Dahua is a tyrant or not. As long as he treats me well, why can't I marry him? Actually, this was a stupid question. If your man was a bad guy but loved you, would you want such a man? What does the world have to do with me? A woman's heart is very small. It can only fit one man. Therefore, Ning Shu didn't want to bother with Wen Ruhua when he used this kind of logic to pressure her. By Qinxiang, you're hopeless. You did such a thing for your own vanity. Don't you feel guilty? Wen Ruhua roared at Ning Shu. Damn, what did she do? What did He Dahua's tyrant have to do with her marrying him? Using this reason to stop her from marrying He Dahua. Was there nothing wrong with her brain? If she didn't marry He Dahua, he wouldn't be a tyrant anymore. In short, this logic had successfully made Ning Shu dizzy. Wen Ruhua said coldly, By Qinxiang, if you're really so desperate for a man, I can satisfy you. You can even marry a man like He Dahua. You're really desperate. Slap. Ning Shu slapped Wen Ruhua. Wen Ruhua was stunned. She didn't seem to have realized what had happened. She stared blankly at Ning Shu. Ning Shu attacked with both hands, showering Wen Ruhua's head and face with ferocious slaps. Chapter 166. Ever since he came to this world, Ning Shu had never hit anyone with his own hands. This body's strength was pitifully weak. But now, Ning Shu was really disgusted with Wen Ruhua. He humiliated a woman to gain balance in his heart. Just because Bai Qinxiang had wronged him and betrayed his promise, he was simply a piece of trash. Even the real Bai Qinxiang had not wronged Wen Ruhua. Wen Ruhua held on to some promise and felt that she was the most miserable person in the world. Yuelon, come here. Your miss is a little tired. Ning Shu felt his hand tremble. He had used too much force. Impudent, how dare you? Wen Ruhua covered her face and looked at Ning Shu in disbelief. You actually dared to hit me. Ning Shu blew on his fingers and looked coldly at Wen Ruhua. If you dare to squawk in front of me in the future, I will cripple you. Bai Qinxiang, I will kill you, you bitch. When Ruhua wanted to rush into the room to get the sword, but Ning Shu said coldly, Are you sure? I have a guard with strong martial arts. If I blow this whistle, you will die before you kill me. When Ruhua's body froze, Ning Shu walked in front of Wen Ruhua. Wen Ruhua took 2 steps back and looked at Ning Shu maliciously. Bitch, what do you want? Ning Shu said gently to Wen Ruhua. Cousin, I want you to start reading tomorrow. Don't read those messy books. Hurry up and study for the imperial examinations. I said before that I will not participate in the imperial examinations. Also, what does what I read have to do with you? Wen Ruhua said with a pale face. Ning Shu said indifferently, You can't read too many of those books. It's not good for your body. Also, cousin's food is bad. If you continue to play like this, sooner or later you will be annihilated. I don't understand what you are saying. Move, I want to go in and sleep. Wen Ruhua said coldly. Ning Shu's voice was very gentle. Cousin, tomorrow morning Qinxiang will wake you up to study. If you don't study you will die. Ning Shu waved the whistle in her hand. Wen Ruhua glanced at the whistle and entered the house angrily, slamming the door behind her. Ning Shu curled his lips and said to Yuelan, Let's sleep too. Be more vigilant at night. Ning Shu entered the tent. First, he lifted the quilt to look at the treasured sword before going to sleep. Deep into the night, the sounds of frogs croaking could be heard everywhere. Wen Ruhua tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. She reached out to touch her face and hissed in pain. She secretly hated Bai Qinxiang for being so vicious. This woman was just so vicious, a vicious bitch. The moonlight shone through the window onto Wen Ruhua's face on the bed. Her pale face looked like a ghost under the moonlight. It was ferocious and terrifying. Wen Ruhua's chest rose and fell violently. Clearly she was angry. She flipped over and sat up on the bed. Through the window, she looked at the tent in the courtyard. Her heart was filled with anger. She got off the bed and put on her shoes. She quietly opened the door and walked out of the tent. Hearing the sound of breathing inside, Wen Ruhua sneered silently. It was good that he was asleep. She carefully entered the tent and walked to the side of the bed. Wen Ruhua reached out to remove the whistle from Ning Shu's neck. This was the first time Wen Ruhua had done something like this. She was so nervous that she held her breath. Her outstretched hand was shaking. Just as she was about to succeed, a bright light flashed in front of her eyes. Before Wen Ruhua could react, she felt something cold pierce into her lower abdomen. Pain immediately spread through her entire body. Wen Ruhua let out a blood-curdling scream, as she felt the cold object penetrate deeper into her body. Wen Ruhua screamed in pain. Miss, what's wrong? What's wrong? Yuelan, who was sleeping, jumped up when she heard the scream. Ning Shu said coldly, Light the lamp. Wen Ruhua, who was lying on the ground, was groaning. She was terrified. When she heard Ning Shu's voice, she immediately shouted weakly, Cousin, it's me. Save me. Ning Shu pretended not to hear Wen Ruhua's voice. When Yuelan lit the oil lamp, Ning Shu seemed to see Wen Ruhua lying on the ground. Wen Ruhua was lying in a pool of blood. Her face was bruised and she had lost too much blood. Her face was unrecognizable. Ah! Ning Shu screamed as loudly as he could, breaking the silence of the village. Then the dogs in the village started barking. The quiet night started to become restless. Cousin, why is it you? Cousin, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Ning Shu forced himself to squeeze out 2 drops of tears. He wanted to touch Wen Ruhua, but didn't dare to. Ning Shu was afraid that his hand would be smeared with blood. Cousin, I'm sorry. I thought it was a thief. Cousin, what should we do? Ning Shu looked like he was out of his wits. Wen Ruhua's heart was filled with fear and anger. She felt that her life force was about to be drained away along with her blood. When she heard that the culprit was only babbling and not taking any action, Wen Ruhua's heart was filled with hatred. Go get a doctor, Wen Ruhua said weakly. Her lips were already turning purple. Ning Shu immediately said, Okay. Cousin, wait for me. I'll go get a doctor now. There are herbs in the courtyard that can stop bleeding. Go get them. Wen Ruhua used a lot of energy to say this. Ning Shu seemed to be out of her wits. She asked Wen Ruhua, Cousin, should I call for a doctor first or get the herbs for you first? I don't know any herbs. What do they look like? If they are herbs that promote blood circulation and remove blood stasis, you will bleed even faster. When Ruhua really wanted to kill this bitch. Beauty, what happened? I heard your heroic voice from afar. He Dahua walked over with a few villagers behind her. Ning Shu immediately said, "Go and see cousin. Something happened to him." He Dahua glanced into the tent and ordered the villagers beside her. "Go get a doctor. Help Mr. One to the bed. Help me get the herbs first." When Ruhua said with difficulty, He Dahua said indifferently, "Drive him to get the herbs." When Rushing took the herbs, Ning Shu took it and chewed it before pressing it on Wen Ruhua's wound. Yuelan also chewed the herbs. It was so bitter that Yuelan's face scrunched up. He Dahua didn't seem to care about Wen Ruhua's life or death. She raised her caterpillar-like eyebrows and asked, "How did he get injured in your tent?" Ning Shu's face showed uneasiness and guilt. He said to He Dahua, "I didn't do it on purpose. It's just that cousin came to my tent in the middle of the night. I heard the commotion and thought it was a thief. So I took out my sword to protect myself." "Tsk tisk." He Dahua smacked her lips. "Coming to a girl's room in the middle of the night. Isn't he up to no good? A gentleman would do that. Usually, he flaunts himself as the descendant of a gentleman. He's just like a flower thief. Do you think I'm blind?" Chapter 167. When Ruhua, who was lying on the bed, was starting to lose consciousness. She felt that she was going to die. When she heard Bai Qinxiang wailing in her ears, it was as if he had died. When Ruhua hated her to death, this woman had abandoned him before, and now she was going to kill him. "Doctor, the doctor is here." A villager brought the doctor over. Ning Shu immediately shouted towards Wen Ruhua, who was on the bed. "Cousin, the doctor is here. You'll be fine." "Cousin, I really didn't do it on purpose. Cousin, please don't let anything happen to you. If anything happens to you, what will happen to Qin Xiang?" The doctor took Wen Ruhua's pulse and shook his head. "You have lost too much blood. It is a little dangerous." Ning Shu was speechless. How could the male lead die so easily? "Cousin, my poor cousin. Doctor, is there anything you can do? As long as you save my cousin, I will do anything." Ning Shu wailed. "Cousin, I am sorry. It was pitch black at that time. I really didn't know it was you. There is ginseng or something that can make her die." The doctor also knew that this was unrealistic. Ginseng was something that only rich people prepared. It was good enough that the people of the He family village could eat their fill. How could there be ginseng? Ning Shu had money on him, but how could he buy ginseng in the middle of the night? Ginseng was not an ordinary medicinal herb that could be bought with money. Moreover, Ning Shu did not want to spend money on Wen Ruhua. Ning Shu firmly believed that the male lead would not die so easily. "I have ginseng at home," He Dahua said. When Wen Ruhua heard He Dahua's words, she did not care about the usual hostility between the two of them. She looked at He Dahua with an expectant gaze. "Go to my house and ask my sister to bring the ginseng," He Dahua said to a villager. Ning Shu secretly glanced at He Dahua. When did He Dahua become so generous? She actually used ginseng to save Wen Ruhua. It was as if the sun rose from the west. When Ruhua's wound was bandaged by the doctor with a cloth strip to prevent it from bleeding too much. In addition, with the help of the herbal medicine, the bleeding had stopped. But when Ruhua felt like she would die at any moment. After a while, hurried footsteps could be heard. He Xiaohua's clothes were a little messy. It was obvious that she had come in a hurry. He Xiaohua looked at Wen Ruhua, who was lying on the bed, and her face turned pale. She quickly took out the ginseng in the box. The ginseng was as thick as a thumb, and its roots were intact. It was a very valuable ginseng. He didn't expect the village head's house to have such a good thing. "Doctor, how do I use this?" He Xiaohua was very anxious. When Ruhua heaved a sigh of relief when she saw the ginseng. She also found He Xiaohua pleasing to the eye. He Dahua reached out and took the ginseng from He Xiaohua's hand. He Xiaohua looked at her brother in astonishment and said anxiously, "Brother, what are you doing? Mr. Wen is still waiting for the ginseng. How can you give such a precious thing to him so easily? When Ruhua is not worth the ginseng. This thing is our father's lifeblood." Ning Shu wiped his tears with a handkerchief and stammered, "Just tell me what you want. As long as you can save my cousin, I'm willing to do anything. It's all my fault." It's all my fault that my cousin became like this. Cousin, I'm sorry. I'll give you all the money I have, Ning Shu said to Hidahua. Hidahua waved her hand and squinted at Ning Shu. She said, "Why are you talking about money with me? Brother, what do you want?" Mr. Wen can't wait. Hidahua said very anxiously. This good thing should be used on our family. If when Ruhua agrees to marry Xiaohua and marry into our He family. Hidahua's expression was very cold. Of course you can refuse. Xiaohua's face suddenly turned red. She was very shy. No. When Ruhua's eyes widened, and she shouted no with a strong voice, as if she was experiencing terminal lucidity. That's right. Ning Shu immediately finished when Ruhua's words. If you save my life, I'll repay you with my body. If you give me a drop of water, I'll repay it with a spring. I'll agree on behalf of my cousin. Hurry up and give my cousin the medicine. When Ruhua's eyes widened as she stared at Ning Shu, her bruised face was contorted. She made a gurgling sound from her throat and fainted unconscious. Hidahua looked at Ning Shu. He'll kill you when he wakes up. Ning Shu blinked and looked at Hidahua. Am I wrong? My cousin is a scholar. Of course he understands this. Hidahua opened her folding fan and fanned herself coquettishly. She curled her lips and looked at Wen Ruhua on the bed. The doctor just used some ginseng roots to boil the medicine and poured it down Wen Ruhua's throat. He told Wen Ruhua some precautions and left. Xiaohua now served Wen Ruhua as her husband. She wiped the cold sweat on Wen Ruhua's forehead and wiped her hands. She was so shy that it seemed like she was shrouded in happiness. Ning Shu yawned and saw that Yuelon had fallen asleep leaning against the door frame. She was drooling. This girl's nerves were too thick. Ning Shu pushed Yuelon. Yuelon immediately opened her eyes and looked at Ning Shu. She asked, "Miss, how is she?" "She won't die," Ning Shu said lightly. Seeing that Wen Ruhua's condition was stable, and the villagers had all gone back, Hidahua yawned and asked Xiaohua to go back. However, Xiaohua said that she wanted to stay and take care of Wen Ruhua. Hidahua let her be. She walked to Ning Shu and said, "Beauty, I didn't expect you to be so violent when you're so weak. I'm a little scared of you now." Ning Shu immediately squeezed out 2 drops of cat urine and said guiltily, "I was careless." "Then he deserves it. He must be up to no good in the middle of the night." Hidahua rolled away like a big meatball. Ning Shu looked at Xiaohua who was taking care of her and asked her, "Xiaohua, my cousin doesn't seem to like you. Even if you get married, you won't be happy. If you marry a man, follow the man. If you marry a dog, follow the dog. When he marries into our family, I will have the final say. Besides, how am I not good enough for him? I just need to train him slowly." Xiaohua did not seem to be worried that Wen Ruhua did not like her at all. As long as they got married, everything would be solved. Ning Shu was speechless. She married Wen Ruhua just like that. Ning Shu looked at Wen Ruhua, who was lying on the bed in a mess. He chanted Ba in his heart, and then went back to sleep with Yuelon. "Miss, when can we leave here?" Yuelon's face was filled with anger. "That man sneaked into our tent in the middle of the night. What does he want to do? He's a beast." Ning Shu touched the whistle in front of her chest. She was afraid that Wen Ruhua wanted to steal her whistle and give it to her. After all, that was what happened in the plot. When Ruhua raped Mu Yanluo. Chapter 168. Actually, Ning Shu's guess was right. When Ruhua wanted to steal her whistle, but the main purpose of stealing the whistle was to obtain Ning Shu's body. Hearing that Ning Shu wanted to marry Hidahua, when Ruhua's heart was filled with anger and humiliation. This woman would rather marry someone like Hidahua than care about him. Wasn't it just because Hidahua had power in this village? This woman was like a fly that smelled feces and stuck to him. She was indeed a bitch. When Ruhua wanted to get Bai Qinxiang's body first. Even if Bai Qinxiang married Hidahua, she was just a used shoe that he had slept with. This way, he could take revenge on Bai Qinxiang and humiliate Hidahua. However, when Ruhua's imagination was very beautiful, but the reality was completely different. How did his ancestral sword end up in Bai Qinxiang's hands? Ning Shu and Yulan went out and saw a shadow guard in black standing in the yard. If it wasn't for the moonlight, it would be hard to notice him. "Miss, what are you shouting for? I heard it at the entrance of the village." Ning Shu asked. There's a smell of blood. Who's injured? Ning Shu waved his hand and said, It's okay. Go back and sleep. It's all settled. The shadow guard said to Yulan, Be careful. Miss is unreliable. Hey, how could you say bad things about her in front of her? Do you still want to live? Yulan nodded. I know. Then the shadow guard leisurely left. Ning Shu asked Yulan, Am I really that unreliable? Yulan looked at Ning Shu and said bitterly, I'm with Mississippi. I don't know what will happen in the next second. Ning Shu was speechless. She also didn't know what would happen in the next second. She didn't know how to calculate. Go to sleep. I'm tired after a night. Ning Shu lay down. When Ning Shu woke up the next day, it was already noon. He first went into the room to check on Wenruhua. She still hadn't woken up. He Xiaohua was taking care of her. You are awake. There is some food on the table, He Xiaohua said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu felt that He Xiaohua was very virtuous, but she was a bit overbearing. As the daughter of the village head, she had the right to be willful. Putting aside all these, He Xiaohua was still a good woman. Wenruhua was lucky to have the halo of a main character. After sleeping for a few days, Wenruhua finally woke up. The first thing she did when she woke up was to ask He Xiaohua to get lost. The second thing she did was to ask Ning Shu to get his ass in front of her and serve her. She wanted to take revenge on Ning Shu for agreeing to the marriage against her wishes. However, He Xiaohua and Ning Shu both ignored him. Wenruhua was so angry that his wound exploded and started bleeding. Wenruhua did not dare to be angry anymore. He Xiaohua had already regarded Wenruhua as her husband, so she spoke much more casually and unintentionally hurt Wenruhua. Moreover, He Xiaohua had never been to school and was illiterate. Sometimes, when Wenruhua said something meaningful, He Xiaohua would be dumbfounded. Wenruhua would rather die than marry such a woman. Moreover, she wanted to marry into the family. It was simply trampling on his male dignity. Wenruhua hated Ning Shu the most. She hated her for being arrogant, despotic, and high and mighty. She hated her for not letting her do it obediently. She hated her for hurting herself. She hated her for agreeing to the marriage. She hated her hypocritical face. Ning Shu naturally saw the hatred in Wenruhua's eyes. However, he pretended not to see it. Wenruhua humiliated Mu Yanluo. Mu Yanluo was stabbed in the lower abdomen when she was pregnant. She jumped into the turbulent river. How could Wenruhua understand that kind of pain? Ning Shu asked Wenruhua with concern, Cousin, how are you feeling today? Wenruhua looked at Ning Shu maliciously. Are you disappointed that I didn't die? Cousin, what are you talking about? How could Qin Xiang bear to see you die? Qin Xiang was really careless. Besides, I didn't know that you sneaked into the tent in the middle of the night. I thought that you were a beast with a human face and a beast's heart. That's why I attacked you. If I knew it was you, I wouldn't have attacked you. You are a gentleman, not a beast. Wenruhua's face was ferocious. She looked at Ning Shu and panted. Get out. I don't want to see you. Ning Shu sighed helplessly. He tucked Wenruhua in and said, Cousin, Qin Xiang knows that you are angry that Qin Xiang hurt you. However, I have already explained it clearly. There is also the marriage between you and Miss He. Qin Xiang saw that Miss He was deeply in love with you. In addition, your life was saved by the He family. Qin Xiang thought that this marriage was reliable and agreed on your behalf. Cousin, you don't have to be grateful to Qin Xiang. This is what Qin Xiang should do. Cousin, you should take good care of your body. When you are better, the village chief will arrange your marriage. Ning Shu ignored Wenruhua's red and ashen face. He said, Since you have found your happiness, Qin Xiang can let go of a big matter. Get out. Get out. Wenruhua was like an injured beast. Her eyes were red. Ning Shu roared hoarsely, By Qin Xiang, get out. Okay, don't be angry. I will go out now. Ning Shu turned and left without looking back. Wenruhua was so angry that she wanted to die. She felt that meeting Bai Qin Xiang was the greatest misfortune in her life. This woman ruined her life, abandoned her, and now came back to find her. Now her life was a mess. Now Wenruhua was living a life of recuperation. He Xiaohua treated Wenruhua quite well. She made nourishing things for Wenruhua, killed chickens and ducks, and served her with good food and drinks. However, Wenruhua did not treat He Xiaohua well. Ning Shu watched from the side. and felt that it was unfair for He Xiaohua. This kind of man did not have a heart. He only had himself in his heart. He was selfish and cold. No matter how good you were to him, he would not feel it. Ning Shu could not help but persuade He Xiaohua. He Xiaohua only shook her head. She said that she was willing to do all these. She was very happy to be with Mr. Wen. She also said that after they got married, she would train Wen Ruhua well, and make Wen Ruhua fall in love with her. Ning Shu looked at He Xiaohua's valiant appearance, and did not care about her. He could only give his blessings. Wen Ruhua's wound was very deep, and would get inflamed from time to time. She would get a fever from time to time, and it was very torturous. When Ruhua had lost a lot of weight, her cheekbones were protruding, and her cheeks were sunken. She looked a lot more down and out, not as pretty as before. She did not even look good anymore. She did not look like a gentleman anymore. In addition, during this period of time, when Ruhua was very gloomy, her whole body was covered with a layer of black fog that could not be dispersed. When she looked at people, her eyes were cold. There was a layer of ruthlessness and indifference between her brows. It made people feel very uncomfortable. Chapter 169. When Ruhua's wound was almost healed, she could get out of bed and walk. The village head's family immediately began to prepare for the marriage between Wen Ruhua and He Xiaohua. They decorated the house with red lanterns and colored banners. Wen Ruhua was so angry that she lay back on the bed. Ning Shu felt that he was also part of Wen Ruhua's family. He seriously prepared a few sets of clothes and a new quilt for Wen Ruhua. He even stuffed a few ingots of silver into Wen Ruhua's pocket and told her that it was her dowry. When Wen Ruhua heard the word dowry, she was furious. She threw the ingots of silver in front of her and looked at Ning Shu gloomily. I will never marry He Xiaohua even if I die. Ning Shu picked up the silver on the ground and corrected him. Cousin, now you are marrying Miss He and marrying into the He family. You are not marrying Miss He. By Qinxiang, will you only be satisfied when you destroy me? Wen Ruhua's thin face was ferocious. Ning Shu was stunned and said to Wen Ruhua with grievance, Cousin, how can you think like that? Everything I did was for your own good. If it was not for Miss He's ginseng, you would be in the 18th level of hell now. You would not be able to talk to Qinxiang like this. When Ruhua was speechless, Ning Shu added, Cousin, don't worry. You need to focus on recuperating. Leave everything else to me. I will definitely let you get married in a grand manner. Besides, cousin, there are many people who can testify to this matter. Don't tell me you want to act shamelessly. Do you want to ruin Miss He's reputation? Don't you hate this kind of behavior the most? Don't you hate seeing He Xiaohua take liberties with women and ruin women's reputations the most? Cousin, you won't do this, right? When Ruhua's lips trembled and she could not speak, Ning Shu said again, Qinxiang did this for your own good. Besides, Miss He is a good person. She is very suitable for you. You stabbed me, and then sold me for the ginseng. It was for my own good. By Qinxiang, don't go overboard. When Ruhua roared Ning Shu's face looked even more aggrieved as she said, Cousin, I already said that I didn't know it was you. If I knew it was you, I would never have done this. You shouldn't have sneaked into my tent. You should have called me outside the tent. With your behavior, anyone would think that you were up to no good. Besides, the ginseng is for you to use, not me. How can you say that I sold you for the ginseng? When Ruhua was so angry that she couldn't speak, she could only angrily tell Ning Shu to get lost. After that, Ning Shu quickly ran away, leaving Wen Ruhua moaning as she clutched her wound. The village head picked an auspicious date from an old almanac book and let the two children get married. The weather on the auspicious day was very good. The village head's house was very lively with the sound of firecrackers. Even Wen Ruhua's shabby straw hut was very lively. Ning Shu welcomed everyone warmly. The groom, Wen Ruhua, was tidied up and put on red clothes. He was driven out, and then helped onto the back of the cow. They were ready to go to the village head's house. When Ruhua's face was ashen, there was no joy on her face. She looked at Ning Shu with hatred. Ning Shu smiled and said to Wen Ruhua, Cousin, you go first. I'll come over later. When Ruhua's face was even more ashen, her body trembled, as if she was about to fall off the cow. When Ruhua arrived at the village head's house, She saw that the courtyard was filled with dishes. There were also chickens, ducks, and geese. These were all gifts from the villagers. The vulgar villagers had poor faces. The air was filled with the stench of chicken, duck, and goose excrement. When Ruhua was unwilling to accept this, he roared in his heart. This wasn't his life. His life shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. Looking at the bride who was being helped out, when Ruhua's emotions became even more intense. This wasn't the wife he wanted to marry. This wasn't the life he wanted. He was going to be married into the village head's family. From now on, he would have to look at the village head's face. When Ruhua glanced back and saw Ning Shu walking towards them, his heart was filled with bitterness, hatred, and a strange feeling. That feeling of love and hate made Wen Ruhua unable to control himself. The auspicious time has arrived. Groom, why aren't you getting off the cow? Hidahua waved her fan and said to Wen Ruhua. Wen Ruhua ignored Hidahua and stared straight at Ning Shu. Ning Shu immediately walked over and said, Cousin, it's time for you to get off. It's time for the wedding ceremony. I've said it before. I won't marry He Xiaohua. When Ruhua said to Ning Shu, seemingly in a fit of pique and expectation, Hidahua glared at Wen Ruhua with a murderous look in her eyes. The village chief's face instantly darkened. He ordered people to violently drag Wen Ruhua down from the cow's back and drag her to the main hall to perform the wedding ceremony. Wen Ruhua wanted to struggle, but he was just a weak scholar. How could he compare to the villagers who did farm work? Moreover, Wen Ruhua was injured now. Wen Ruhua was forced to perform the wedding ceremony. When he heard the word ceremony is complete, Wen Ruhua felt as if something had exploded in his heart. His heart suddenly felt empty, so empty that it was unbearable. Ning Shu looked at Wen Ruhua's red face from outside the central room. All kinds of emotions flashed across his face, but there was no joy of marriage. Ning Shu walked into the central room and said to the smiling village head, Village head, please take care of my cousin. This is my dowry for him. I heard that the ginseng that saved my cousin is the village head's most precious thing. I specially ordered people to go to the city to buy it. Ning Shu took the ginseng from Yuelan's hand and handed it to the village head. The village head opened the box and saw the ginseng that was similar to the previous one. He immediately became happy and said, Okay. You don't have to be so polite. We're all family. When Ruhua's eyes turned red when he saw the ginseng, Ning Shu questioned, Why didn't you take out the ginseng before? Why? If Bai Qinxiang had taken out the ginseng earlier, he wouldn't have had to marry He Xiaohua and suffer such humiliation. At most, he could have returned the ginseng to the He family. He wouldn't have fallen to this point for a ginseng. Ning Shu thought to himself, I love to see you struggle in vain. Ning Shu's face showed a stunned expression and said, There was no ginseng before. I saw that you were going to get married, so I specially bought one for you as a wedding gift. Did I do anything wrong? When Ruhua's heart was burning, she wanted to grab her chest and roar to vent the anger in her heart. If she continued to hold it in, when Ruhua felt that she would go crazy. When Ruhua took off the big red flower on her chest and threw it on the ground, she said to the village head, I've returned the ginseng to you. I won't marry He Xiaohua. The old village head's face turned cold. Hidahua said to Wen Ruhua coldly, Bastard, let's see if you can walk out of this central room alive. If you can go back alive, I'll take your surname. He Xiaohua directly lifted the veil and said to Wen Ruhua with a ferocious face with terrible makeup, Don't talk nonsense. Let's go to the bridal chamber. Chapter 170. When Ruhua was dragged into the bridal chamber like a pig waiting to be slaughtered. As for the situation in the bridal chamber, Ning Shu did not know what it was like. Ning Shu felt that He Xiaohua should take it easy. After all, when Ruhua still had a hole in her belly. At noon, they had a wedding banquet at the village head's house and were ready to return to the thatched cottage. Beauty! Hidahua jumped down from the slope and pretended to be elegant as she opened her fan and fanned herself. Ning Shu said, Beauty, you see, when Ruhua is already married to my sister. Shouldn't we get married too? You and I are practically a match made in heaven. We'll be even closer. Ning Shu only said one word, get lost. Beauty, don't be like this. My younger sister is married now. My father has his eyes on me. I don't have a good life. Dahua chased after Ningxu. Don't tell me a man like me doesn't deserve you? Ningxu looked at Dahua. Get lost. Dahua touched her nose. Can you be more tactful? Fortunately, I am magnanimous. Otherwise, I would have been hurt by you. Ningxu could see that Dahua was just talking nonsense. He said disdainfully, if you meet a girl who takes your words seriously, let's see what you will do. Dahua fanned herself and said with a laugh, that's good. If she is serious, I will get married immediately. I am casting a wide net. Ningxu thought, get lost. Ningxu planned to leave. Anyway, when Ruhua had found happiness, in the future, she would have sex with He Xiaohua and have a litter of babies. It had nothing to do with him. By the way, get rid of this broken thatched cottage. In 3 days, my sister will bring Wen Ruhua back to her family. This is also Wen Ruhua's family. You are also my brother-in-law's family. TSK TSK TSK. I have long wanted to get rid of this broken thatched cottage. It is too ugly. Dahua said to Ningxu. Ningxu was speechless. Bring Wen Ruhua back to her family. Ningxu glared at Dahua. My cousin will kill you if you humiliate him like this. The scholar has been rebelling for 100 years. Look at him. I don't even need to do anything. My younger sister will be obedient. Dahua said disdainfully. Since you look down on my cousin so much, why did you agree to this marriage? Ningxu was very puzzled. Dahua said. First of all, He Xiaohua likes Wen Ruhua very much. Second of all, my father respects scholars and wants to have a child who can read. Oh, so Wen Ruhua was just a tool to borrow his seed. TSK TSK TSK. Wen Ruhua had always prided himself on being noble. He probably didn't think that he would have such an image in other people's hearts. Ningxu originally wanted to leave, but he remembered that Wen Ruhua was going back to her parents' home. He couldn't miss such a rare occasion. Therefore, Ningxu quietly waited for his return 3 days later. On the morning of the 3rd day, Ningxu didn't sleep in. He waited at the door early in the morning and asked Yulan to hang 2 strings of firecrackers. Not long after, 2 figures could be seen walking towards them. He Xiaohua was wearing festive clothes, and even Wen Ruhua was wearing brand new clothes. However, Wen Ruhua's complexion wasn't good. Her face was green. On the other hand, He Xiaohua was radiant. It seemed that Wen Ruhua had nourished her very well. Light the firecrackers. Ningxu called Yulan. Yulan nodded and trembled as she lit the firecrackers. The crackling sound startled Wen Ruhua and He Xiaohua, who were approaching. He Xiaohua's face was flushed as she called Ningxu, cousin. Ningxu generously called He Xiaohua cousin-in-law, which made Wen Ruhua's face turn ashen. She felt that Wen Ruhua was like a barrel of explosives. Just a glance or a word from others could make Wen Ruhua have a violent reaction. He Xiaohua came over with a gift and then went to the kitchen to prepare lunch. After all, they had to eat lunch here. Ningxu asked Wen Ruhua, cousin, how are you doing? You and cousin-in-law seem to be very happy. Wen Ruhua's face twitched. She actually gave Ningxu a very gentle smile. When Ningxu saw this smile, his hair stood on end. It was very disgusting. Wen Ruhua's face was thin and blue. When she smiled, it was a fake smile. It looked very ugly. Ningxu smacked his lips and said, cousin, you've become a lot more haggard recently. Who did I become like this because of? Wen Ruhua couldn't help but roar at Ningxu. What happened? He Xiaohua stood in the kitchen with a spatula and looked at Ningxu and Wen Ruhua in confusion. Wen Ruhua immediately said, nothing. Talk to your cousin properly. Why do you keep roaring at her? He Xiaohua said, and turned to go into the kitchen. Ningxu looked at Wen Ruhua with some surprise and said, cousin, it seems that you and cousin-in-law are getting along very well. Strictly speaking, Wen Ruhua was a little afraid of He Xiaohua. In 3 days, He Xiaohua had tamed Wen Ruhua. Wen Ruhua reached out to grab Ningxu's hand. Ningxu dodged. Wen Ruhua's face trembled. She said gently to Ningxu, cousin, let's elope. Cough cough. Ningxu beat his heart and choked on his saliva. What are you talking about? Ningxu looked at Wen Ruhua in surprise. Wen Ruhua's face showed pain and sadness. She looked at Ningxu with regret, affection, and helplessness in her eyes. Ning Shu said, "Cousin, I really regret it. I shouldn't have been angry with you before. After marrying He Xiaohua, I realized that I have always loved you. Everything I did and said was because I care about you. Cousin, let's go and wander around the world. You can even let me go to the imperial examination. In short, I can't leave you." Ning Shu. He was speechless. "But you are already married to cousin-in-law. How can you abandon her? How can cousin-in-law live?" Ning Shu curled his lips and said, when Ruhua waved her hand, "What does He Xiaohua have to do with me? I had no choice but to marry her. I don't love her at all. Cousin, let's leave here." "Cousin, what exactly happened? Tell us and we can think of a solution together. Seeing you in so much pain, Qin Xiang also feels bad," Ning Shu said gently to Wen Ruhua. When Ruhua's face revealed an embarrassed expression, she took a deep breath and said, "Qin Xiang, I've never seen a woman as loose as He Xiaohua. She's so fierce in bed and doesn't care about my feelings at all. Moreover, she's so excited. You also know that He Xiaohua isn't someone I like. I don't want to have sex with her at all. Qin Xiang, the person I've always loved is you. I don't have any feelings for He Xiaohua at all, but she has never considered my feelings. She deserved it. Did you consider Mu Yinluo's feelings when you slept with her?" In Ning Shu's kitchen, He Xiaohua shouted, "Cousin-in-law, cousin wants to elope with me. He wants to elope with me." Chapter 171. When Ruhua stared at Ning Shu in a daze. Just a moment ago, he was still warm and affectionate. The next moment he was so ruthless. When Ruhua was so shocked that she didn't know what expression to make, He Xiaohua rushed out of the kitchen with a spatula. She directly pulled Wen Ruhua's ear and shouted, "Who did you say you were going to elope with? You're too bold. You're already married to me. How dare you elope with someone else? Let go of my ear, He Xiaohua. I said let go of my ear." When Ruhua's face was livid, she couldn't break free from He Xiaohua's control and couldn't save her ear. "By Qin Xiang, you betrayed me. I treated you so well." When Ruhua roared Ning Shu, she looked at Bai Qin Xiang leisurely drinking tea. Looking at her own sorry state, when Ruhua felt that death was better than living. "Cousin, what's your relationship with Ruhua? Why did he elope with you?" He Xiaohua questioned Ning Shu. Ning Shu spread her hands. "Cousin wanted to get rid of you, so he pulled me into the water. He saw that I had a carriage and could run faster, so he tricked me into eloping with him." When Ruhua almost spat out blood, Ning Shu roared, "By Qin Xiang, you bitch. Cousin, we're leaving first." He Xiaohua pulled Wen Ruhua's ear and left. Ning Shu asked Yulan to sit down and eat. "It's a pity to leave without eating such a big table of food." Yulan also nodded. He Xiaohua is really a powerful woman. "Miss, when are we leaving? I really don't want to sleep in the tent." Yulan said bitterly. Ning Shu ate and said, "We're leaving tomorrow." "Great." After the meal, Yulan was very active in packing up her things. Ning Shu divided the things on her body into 2 portions, one for Yulan and the other for herself. Yulan looked at the banknotes and asked, "Miss, why are you giving this servant so many banknotes? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. If something happens, we can only eat dirt." Ning Shu said indifferently as he leisurely laid on the bed and watched Yulan pack up. Thinking of the days of trekking tomorrow, Ning Shu and Yulan went to bed quite early. They planned to leave early the next morning. In the middle of the night, Ning Shu was woken up by someone. The groggy Ning Shu thought that when Ruhua had snuck into the tent again, he hurriedly took out his sword and stabbed the person on the bed. However, none of them managed to stab him. "Miss, it's me." The secret guard's voice rang out. "The horses are here." "What?" Ning Shu woke up with a start. "What's coming?" Yulan also woke up. When she heard the secret guard's words, her face immediately turned pale. "Me, miss, the bandits are here." Ning Shu almost jumped up. Why would a bandit come to this remote village in the middle of the night? Coming out to rob in the middle of the night? You are not a thief. There was no such thing in the plot. What's going on? Ning Shu suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. He hurriedly put on his shoes and went out of the tent to see the village head's house was brightly lit. Ning Shu immediately understood where the bad feeling in his heart came from. When rushing was the male lead, he should be entangled with the female lead. However, now he was married to He Xiaohua. This seriously exceeded the plot. In order to reverse the plot, he had to eliminate He Xiaohua as his wife. Just when she decided to leave tomorrow, a bandit appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the night. It was simply too much. He had gone too far. It was all because of her. Yuelan, quickly hide well. Forget it. Secret guard, take Yuelan and hide well. Then come find me. Ning Shu stuffed the package into Yuelan's arms. Yuelan's teeth were chattering. She hugged the package tightly. Ning Shu anxiously asked, "Where is the young miss?" "Young miss, let's go together. These bandits are people who kill without blinking. You and your secret guard brother first find a place to hide. The young miss has something to do now," Ning Shu's guard said. "Take Yuelan and leave first. Hurry." The secret guard did not say anything. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Yuelan and disappeared into the night. Ning Shu took a deep breath and headed towards the village chief's house. She hid not far away and saw a group of people blocking the entrance of the village chief's house. One of them was riding a horse and looked like a bandit leader. The rest of the bandits were relying on their 2 legs. At this moment, the village head's family, the old village head, He Dahua, He Xiaohua, and even when Ruhua were caught. He Dahua frowned her caterpillar-like eyebrows. She said to the bandit leader, "What's the matter? You are a guest. Go inside and drink a cup of water." "You want to send us away with a bowl of water?" the bandit leader said murderously. He Dahua looked like she was afraid of death. She lowered her head and said, "Of course it won't be a cup of water. It's already so late. Everyone must be tired. Good wine and dishes will be served soon." "Good wine and dishes are not enough. There must be a woman. Let this woman serve me. Call all the girls in the village over," the bandit leader said arrogantly. The old village head immediately retorted, "Bastard, in your dreams. If you want to defile the girls in my village, you will have to kill me." "Damn, old man. I will let your daughter serve me immediately." The bandit leader jumped off the horse and tore He Xiaohua's clothes. He Xiaohua let out a sharp cry. When Ruhua's eyes flashed, she shouted at the bandit leader, "Wait a moment." Ning Shu, who was hiding, saw when Ruhua make a sound. Seeing his woman being hurt, as a man, he should stand up. "What do you want?" The bandit leader looked at Wen Ruhua. Wen Ruhua cupped her hands at the bandit leader, with the elegance of a scholar. "You people are just after money. I know where the valuable things in this house are hidden. I can take you there, but my condition is that you let me join you. I have studied, and can be the military counselor of the team." When Ruhua's words shocked the He family and Ning Shu. Okay. My team welcomes anyone. You are a scholar. Okay, you will be my military counselor from now on." The bandit leader patted Wen Ruhua's shoulder. Wen Ruhua smiled. Her smile was cold in the dark. She picked up the sword on the ground and said to the bandit leader, "I have a request. I want to kill this woman with my own hands." When Ruhua's body and voice were trembling, there was a gloomy look on her face. The He family looked at Wen Ruhua in disbelief. He Dahua stood in front of He Xiaohua, whose face was as pale as ash, and said coldly, "Wen Ruhua, it's a waste that you're well educated. Xiaohua is your wife. Do you want to kill your wife? You are an inhumane bastard. I've never acknowledged He Xiaohua as my wife. You forced me to marry her. I hate her. I hate her," Wen Ruhua said coldly. "Every time I'm in bed with her, I feel so disgusted that I'm about to throw up." Chapter 172. When Ruhua had completely darkened, and her true personality was completely exposed. In the plot, Mu Yanluo had endured humiliation and tolerated Wen Ruhua. In the end, Wen Ruhua stabbed Mu Yanluo, causing her to lose her child and disappear. This made Wen Ruhua completely understand Mu Yanluo's position in her heart. However, Ning Shu didn't tolerate him, and there was no reason for her to. Wen Ruhua's personality had always been stubborn and depressed. Coupled with these things, she had completely turned evil. Now she wanted to kill He Xiaohua with her own hands. When Ruhua slowly walked towards He Xiaohua, the tip of her sword scratching the ground with a piercing sound. He Xiaohua shook her head and shouted at Wen Ruhua with tears streaming down her face. "Wen Ruhua, you can't do this to me." Wen Ruhua responded to He Xiaohua with a sneer. "Mississippi, Ning Shu heard the voice of a shadow guard. Ning Shu whispered, "Have you hidden Yuan?" The shadow guard nodded. "Are we leaving now?" "Wait a minute." Ning Shu bit her lips. Mu Yinluo's fate was to be reversed, but other innocent people shouldn't be involved in this battle. She had taken a big step. The plot had changed too much, and the laws of heaven and earth were forcing the plot to be reversed. Ning Shu said to the shadow guard, "Help stop the bandits and let the He family escape." The shadow guard looked at Ning Shu. "What about you?" "I only have my own way." Ning Shu watched when Ruhua slowly walked towards He Xiaohua. "My task is to protect Mississippi. I don't care about the others." The shadow guard said coldly. Ning Shu said in a low voice, "I'm your Mississippi. You have to listen to me." "Okay." Ning Shu took a deep breath and rushed into the yard shouting, "When Ruhua stop." When Ruhua, who was wrestling with He Dahua, was stunned for a moment. Then she said coldly, "By Qinxiang, what are you doing here? Do you think I'll be merciful just because you're my cousin?" "Beautiful, this woman is beautiful. Just nice, just nice." The bandit leader looked at Ning Shu and started drooling. "Why are you here? Is it dangerous?" He Dahua was no longer as sloppy as she usually was. "There's no time to explain. Take your sister's father and leave." Ning Shu said to He Dahua, "What about you? What about you?" He Dahua frowned. When Ruhua saw Ning Shu and He Dahua flirting with each other, she sneered, "None of you can leave today." When Ruhua, "You're really disgusting." Ning Shu spat at When Ruhua, then turned to He Dahua and said, "Go, I can hold them off. You can block my ass." Before He Dahua could finish speaking, a man in black with a mask on his face appeared and stood beside Ning Shu. "Beauty, Big Brother Flower will remember your kindness in his heart. One day, I will repay you." He Dahua didn't say anything. She glanced at When Ruhua, then carried her sister on her back and pulled her father away. He Dahua was also decisive. She abandoned everything at home and quickly ran to the back of the mountain. "Wanna run? No one has ever run away from me." The bandit leader shouted to the bandits behind him. The bandits immediately rushed towards He Dahua. The shadow guards took out their swords and blocked them. Their swords flashed, and in a short while, there were several corpses lying on the ground. The bandit leader saw that this person was a tough nut to crack. He shouted to the bandits behind him, "Kill this man and this beauty will be ours. We brothers will share her." When the men saw Ning Shu, their eyes lit up with greed. They rushed towards the shadow guard without any regard for their lives. No matter how strong the shadow guard's martial arts were, he couldn't handle so many people. When Ning Shu saw that the shadow guard was having a hard time, she lifted her skirt and ran away. She hoped that she could share some of the burden with the shadow guards. Chase after her. This woman is an outstanding beauty. She is the wife of a high official. It is very likely that she will make a fortune. When Ruhua tempted the bandit leader quickly led a group of people, and when Ruhua to chase after Ning Shu, the sky gradually brightened. The roosters in the village were crowing. Ning Shu lifted her skirt and ran in front. A large group of people followed behind her. Although Ning Shu was running with great effort, she didn't run very fast. The people behind her had the mentality of a cat and mouse. They seemed to want to catch Ning Shu when she was exhausted and couldn't struggle. Ning Shu couldn't run anymore. In front of her was a big river. This was the river that Mu Yinluo jumped into. "Why aren't you running?" by Qinxiang. "Why don't you run?" When Ruhua held a sword in her hand, she looked very vicious. Perhaps when Ruhua was more suitable to hold a sword than a pen. When Ruhua imagined herself to be a great hero, who punished corrupt officials. Ning Shu turned around and spat at When Ruhua. "When Ruhua, your hatred of evil is only because you are envious that those high-ranking officials can do whatever they want, but you can't. You want to be like them, but you can't. So you are envious, jealous, and hate them." "Nonsense. It's not like that at all." When Ruhua refuted, "I'm doing this for the sake of the people. I want them to live a better life. Without these corrupt officials, the people can live a real life." "Bah, When Ruhua, you've joined the bandits. Do you know what bandits are? They burn, kill, rob, kill, and take lives. Everywhere they go there will be whales." Ning Shu said disdainfully. "When Ruhua, you crave power but can't get it. You're still using the mask of righteousness to wrap yourself up. Don't you have any shame? Later, you'll still rob this village, and even kill the villagers. What's the difference between you and those corrupt officials? Ning Shu's heart was on fire. Why hadn't the shadow guards arrived yet? Ning Shu glanced at the river. Did she really have to jump in? I crave power. If I had power, would you by Qinxiang choose the son of a high official? When Ruhua said indifferently, when I have power, I'll kill all the corrupt officials in the world. Ning Shu replied with 3 words. Ha ha ha. Boss, let me tell you a secret. This village has a big secret. When Ruhua ignored Ning Shu and said to the bandit leader. The bandit leader immediately asked. Oh, what secret? When Ruhua moved closer to the bandit leader's ear, and seemed to be saying something. However, the sword in her hand stabbed into the bandit leader's heart. The bandit leader looked at Wen Ruhua in disbelief, and his body fell to the ground. Master, first master! The lackeys all cried out in alarm, as they looked at Wen Ruhua in astonishment. Ning Shu was also stunned. Looking at the bloody sword in Wen Ruhua's hand, Wen Ruhua's expression was very cold. The gloominess between her eyebrows dissipated. It was as if something had broken out of her body. Wen Ruhua was completely different. It was as if Wen Ruhua was supposed to be like this. Wen Ruhua raised the bloody sword in her hand and shouted loudly. From today onwards, I'm the boss of this team. From today onwards, I'll lead everyone to live better lives and have more money and beauties. If anyone objects, they'll end up with this corpse. Wen Ruhua kicked the corpse of the boss on the ground. Chapter 173. After Wen Ruhua intimidated the bandits, she turned around and looked at Ning Shu with her sword in hand. Ning Shu extended her hand and said coldly, Cousin, come here. I'd be crazy if I went there. Ning Shu took a step back. Behind her was the river. There was no way out. When Ruhua revealed her white teeth, Ning Shu smiled as if she was bewitching her. Bai Qinxiang, come here. Do you want me to catch you personally? Are you waiting for your guards? When Ruhua said coldly, I'll catch you when your guards arrive. When Ruhua walked over with her sword in hand, Ning Shu immediately said, Don't come over. If you come any closer, I'll jump. I'm really going to jump. With your vanity, you won't bear to die. When Ruhua didn't stop walking, she obviously knew Bai Qinxiang very well. Ning Shu looked anxious. She lifted her skirt and shouted at Wen Ruhua. Don't come over. I'm really going to jump. Wen Ruhua was different now. She was no longer a lonely scholar. She had so many subordinates. She couldn't win against Wen Ruhua now. Ning Shu felt that it was her own fault. If she wasn't wearing the female lead's skin, grass would be growing on her grave. Sigh. Wen Ruhua, I'm really going to jump. Fuck, I'm really going to jump. Ning Shu lifted her skirt and shouted at Wen Ruhua. Wen Ruhua sneered. Her smile was full of sarcasm. Ning Shu took a deep breath. She knew that she couldn't be caught by Wen Ruhua. If she was caught, she would be tortured by Wen Ruhua like in the plot. Moreover, there were so many bandits. With Wen Ruhua's hatred for her, she would probably treat her like a prostitute and serve these bandits. Thinking of this, Ning Shu no longer hesitated. She jumped into the river and gulped down 2 mouthfuls of water. She heard Wen Ruhua's roar. Bai Qinxiang, I won't let you go even if you die. Miss. The secret guard appeared. If you had appeared 1 second earlier, you wouldn't have had to jump. The river was very fast. Ning Shu disappeared in a few seconds after jumping in. The secret guards searched along the river. When Ruhua's eyes were red as she shouted at the bandits, Find her. Even if she dies, we must find her body. Bai Qinxiang, you bitch. Ning Shu could feel the pain of the undercurrent hitting his body. He tried his best to dig with his limbs. Thinking about how Mu Yanluo had suffered a miscarriage and jumped into the river, Ning Shu felt that he hadn't gone overboard at all. When Ruhua was originally a person with a flawed personality, if she was in the modern world, she would be a terrorist who would affect the stability of society. Now that when Ruhua had become a bandit, she would probably cause chaos wherever she went. Moreover, when Ruhua always used justice to flaunt herself, it was so disgusting. Ning Shu dog paddled for a while and was exhausted. He was hit by the undercurrent in the river, and his whole body felt like it was being torn apart. He fainted from the pain. When Ning Shu woke up, half of her body was still soaked in water. Fortunately, she was still alive. The problem was, wasn't she supposed to be at the divine doctor's house? Why did he leave her here and no one cared about her? They were both female leads, but why was there such a big difference? Ning Shu moved her body and felt some pain. There were also scratches on her arms, which were caused by the submerged reefs in the river. Ning Shu looked around and found a man not far from him. He was dressed in white and seemed to be fishing. Ning Shu immediately shouted, "Hero, help!" The man in white turned to look at Ning Shu, put away his fishing rod, and left with the bamboo basket. Damn, I've never seen such a heartless person. Ning Shu hurriedly got up and wrung the water from his skirt. He lifted his wet skirt and chased after the man. He didn't have the fate of being the female lead, and had even contracted her illness. He had to rely on himself for everything. As soon as he approached the man, Ning Shu smelled the fragrance of medicine on his body. His hair was tied up with a wooden hairpin, meticulous and meticulous. His whole body exuded a cold aura. This coldness came from his bones. It was austere and unapproachable. This was one of Mu Yanluo's harem, the divine doctor. In the plot, Mu Yanluo was saved by a villager and sent to the divine doctor's house. The divine doctor basically didn't do anything. But at that time, Mu Yanluo was in a miserable state with scars all over her body. Perhaps the divine doctor wanted to challenge his medical skills, so he treated Mu Yanluo and healed her like a cheat. Moreover, the scars on her body and face disappeared, just like before. It was even more exaggerated than skin removal. However, Ning Shu could understand. Mu Yanluo couldn't have been disfigured forever. Without her smooth skin, how could she have attracted so many men to the point that they decided to share her? The divine doctor was the calmest and most restrained man in Mu Yanluo's harem. He was also the coldest man. When he was with Mu Yanluo, the only time they had sex was when the divine doctor was concocting a medicinal powder. The powder changed into an aphrodisiac, and its effects were extraordinarily strong. Don't ask how a divine doctor concocted an aphrodisiac. It was all for the sake of the plot. The divine doctor forced himself on Mu Yanluo under the influence of the medicinal powder. Ning Shu stared at the divine doctor's back. Damn it, don't you have hands? Can't you do it yourself? The divine doctor was indeed a divine doctor. After they had sex, the divine doctor gave Mu Yanluo a pill and said that if she put it down there, she would become a virgin again. In other words, he wouldn't take responsibility. Mu Yanluo took the pill and didn't say anything. From then on, the divine doctor never touched Mu Yanluo again. He wasn't like other men who would be infatuated with Mu Yanluo's body after having sex with her once. But the divine doctor didn't. Even when he shared Mu Yanluo with other men, those men would fight for the right to use Mu Yanluo. The divine doctor didn't. He would only do his own thing quietly. But Mu Yanluo liked the divine doctor. He couldn't understand why the divine doctor wanted to join the harem. He didn't feel that he was after Mu Yanluo. He didn't fight for her favor, nor was he infatuated with Mu Yanluo's body. The divine doctor turned around and looked at Ning Shu. He said coldly, "Why are you following me?" The divine doctor's voice was so cold that it made one's heart tighten. Ning Shu squeezed out 2 drops of cat urine and stammered. This little girl was alone and had no family. I felt that there was no meaning in living, so I decided to jump into the river. If I live, it means that the heavens want me to live. If I die, it means that I'm fated to die. Now that I'm still alive, it means that the heavens want me to live. I must stay strong and live on. Ning Shu clenched her fists and said passionately. The divine doctor looked at Ning Shu, as if he was looking at a crazy person, and ignored her. Ning Shu continued, "Hero, we can be considered to be fated. The first person I saw when I woke up was you. Since we are so fated, let's be good friends." The divine doctor still ignored Ning Shu. Ning Shu continued, "Divine doctor, I want to be your disciple. I want to know how to cure the aphrodisiac." Chapter 174. How do you know I'm the godly doctor? The godly doctor turned around and said coldly, "And who sent you here?" Ning Shu said, "I smell medicine on you. As for calling you the godly doctor, it's just a polite way of addressing you. For example, If you meet a third-rate Jianghu person who knows how to wield swords, wouldn't they call him a hero? It's just a polite way of addressing you. The godly doctor was quite good-looking, but he was too cold. He was like a moving iceberg. The godly doctor glanced at Ning Shu and quickened his steps, wanting to shake off Ning Shu. Ning Shu lifted his skirt and ran behind the godly doctor. As he ran, he panted and shouted, "Godly doctor, let's be friends." "Are you crazy?" The godly doctor frowned and said coldly, "You have medicine?" Ning Shu sighed. "I just want to know if there's any other way to get rid of an aphrodisiac other than having sex." Ning Shu followed the godly doctor to his residence. The godly doctor's residence was much better than Wen Ruhua's. At least the godly doctor's bamboo house was clean and tidy. In front of the house was a neat and tidy medicinal field. There were all sorts of medicinal herbs planted in the field. Ning Shu sighed in his heart. Finally, there was a good place to stay. The godly doctor walked into the house. Ning Shu wanted to follow, but the godly doctor immediately closed the door, almost pinching Ning Shu's nose. Ning Shu felt a little cold. It was very uncomfortable to wear wet clothes. Ning Shu sat on the ground with a plop. Then she knocked on the door and shouted, "Big brother, can you give me a tattered shirt? I want to change my clothes." There was no sound in the house. Obviously, the godly doctor did not care about Ning Shu. Ning Shu knocked on the door and said, "Big brother, don't be like this. As long as everyone extends a hand, the world will become a beautiful tomorrow. Can you give me a shirt to wear?" "Scram." The godly doctor's voice was very cold. "If you don't scram, I'll poison you to death." So vicious. Ning Shu really did not dare to provoke the godly doctor. He went out of the forest and found a farmer to change into some coarse linen clothes. Then he returned to the bamboo house. The godly doctor had already come out of the house and was looking at the herbs in the medicinal field. Ning Shu quickly went over to greet him and asked, "Godly doctor, have you eaten?" The godly doctor looked at Ning Shu coldly. "Why did you come back?" Ning Shu said, "I want to learn medicine from you." The godly doctor, "I want to learn to medicine from you?" Godly doctor's doctor, godly doctor. The godly doctor furrowed his brows. "Is there something wrong with your brain? Which village are you from? I've said it before, without my permission, no one is allowed to come close. Do you want to be poisoned to death?" He wanted to poison people so easily. "Master, I want to learn medicine from you. I want to know how to treat a man who has been drugged by an aphrodisiac, so that he won't defile a woman. Should I soak him in ice water, or knock him out, and wait for the effects of the aphrodisiac to wear off?" The godly doctor frowned even more and said, "Scram." Ning Shu saw that the godly doctor did not want to see him, and wanted to scram. But when he thought of the godly doctor's medical skills, he wanted to learn from him secretly. "Master, I really want to learn medicine from you. Just pretend that I don't exist. I'll help you tidy up the medicinal field and help you." Ning Shu was the least worried when he was with the godly doctor. The godly doctor was the most cold-blooded and did not seem to be interested in sex. He did not have to worry about being pushed down. The only thing he was worried about was the aphrodisiac incident. Ning Shu could avoid it if he prepared in advance. "Scram," the godly doctor said coldly. Ning Shu puffed up his chest. He was the female lead after all. How could he not be attracted to the male lead at all? The godly doctor did not even look at Ning Shu, which made Ning Shu feel very defeated. Ning Shu had no choice but to wait outside the bamboo house every day. The godly doctor did not like Ning Shu, and ignored Ning Shu from start to end. Ning Shu could only shamelessly follow behind the godly doctor. "Master, master, please accept me as your disciple. I will definitely learn well, and spread your teachings to benefit the world." Ning Shu chattered on. The godly doctor sprinkled some powder on Ning Shu. At first, Ning Shu sneezed, but she didn't feel anything. Then her entire body went limp. She felt weak and flustered. It was as if she had low blood sugar. She sat on the ground, paralyzed. "Master, did you poison me? Is this the legendary 10 fragrant bone softening powder?" Ning Shu felt weak all over, and was a little scared. What if he was pushed down by someone in this state? Although the godly doctor seemed to have a cold personality, he was still a man. Especially when his body was so beautiful, coupled with the attraction between the male and female leads, and the absence of the shadow guard, the chances of him being pushed down were 100%. Master, can you give me the antidote? Ning Shu asked pitifully. The godly doctor ignored Ning Shu, and did what he was supposed to do. He completely ignored Ning Shu, and did not care about her at all. Ning Shu was originally worried that she would be pushed down, but the godly doctor did not even look at her. When they were eating, the godly doctor directly threw a coarse grain bread to Ning Shu. Moreover, he did not throw it into Ning Shu's hands, but directly on the ground. It was like throwing a bone to a dog. Ning Shu was speechless. I'm the female lead, I have a halo. You can't treat me like this. Ning Shu struggled to pick up the bread on the ground, and wiped it on her clothes. It was fucking disgusting. Why was she so miserable? The godly doctor was clearly eating big steamed buns. Why did she have to eat this? Her heart was so tired. Seeing that the godly doctor had no intention of pushing her down, Ning Shu was relieved. Every time the godly doctor gave her bread, Ning Shu shamelessly asked the godly doctor for a bowl of water. The bread was too disgusting and too dry. Ning Shu asked the godly doctor, Master, where did you get this sorghum bread from? Today's sorghum bread is a little hard. My teeth almost fell out. Make it softer next time. Ning Shu did not expect the godly doctor to answer. This godly doctor had a cold personality, and did not speak much. Perhaps he was too lonely living alone. It's the consultation fee from the villagers who came to see me, the godly doctor said coldly. There's too much at home. Ning Shu was speechless. She felt so stifled and sad. She felt like she was a rubbish bin. Do you really want to learn medicine from me? The godly doctor suddenly asked. Ning Shu immediately said, Of course I'm serious. I want to learn medicine from you and benefit the world. The godly doctor ignored Ning Shu's righteous words. Instead, he asked, What do you think is required to learn medicine? Was this considered an entrance exam? Ning Shu felt that she had to answer seriously. Ning Shu looked at the godly doctor's face, trying to find some clues. However, the godly doctor's face was as cold as ice. His face was emotionless. Ning Shu probed, Benevolence. Chapter 175. Hearing Ning Shu's answer of benevolence, the doctor only smiled coldly, and looked at Ning Shu without saying a word. Is my answer wrong? Ning Shu saw the doctor's unfathomable expression and asked, Then what do I need to have to learn medicine? The doctor looked at Ning Shu and said indifferently, Everything in the world is just a toy in the palm of your hand. Ning Shu was speechless. Speak human language. The doctor said, You're not suitable to learn medicine. No, I can do it. Ning Shu said firmly. Learning medicine is to use one thing to fill in the flaws of another thing. Using herbs to treat people is to use herbs to repair the human body. The godly doctor said faintly, What the hell is this compassion that you're talking about? Ning Shu was speechless. Didn't they say that doctors were benevolent? Why was it not the same when it came to the doctor? Not only was the doctor cold, even his heart was cold. He treated people as toys that needed to be repaired. If he was happy, he would do it. If he was unhappy, he would not do it. He thought that this was a person who was cold on the outside, but passionate on the inside. But in reality, he was a person who was cold from the inside out. He really did not know how Mu Yinluo could tolerate him. Ning Shu looked at the doctor and asked, Master, can you teach me how to repair toys? I said you can't do it. The doctor shook his head with a cold expression. Under Ning Shu's shameless behavior, the doctor finally relented, and allowed Ning Shu to start fertilizing the herbs. Now, Ning Shu was carrying a bucket, and applying the 5 grains reincarnation item to the herbs. He also had to loosen the soil, and pull out the weeds. She had avoided the washing bucket in the Qi residence, but she still could not avoid the fertilizing. Why was it that the female lead was always the master begging to take her in as a disciple? Why was she so miserable? Ning Shu felt that he needed to increase his luck a little. If he had enough points, he could buy a halo that everyone loved. Even if Ning Shu washed himself clean every day, he still felt that there was a smell of feces on his body that could not be removed. It was simply too disgusting. Only Ning Shu smelled the smell of dung on his body. The godly doctor didn't want to get close to Ning Shu. The two of them basically didn't speak a word, let alone eat. Ning Shu ate coarse noodle cornbread, and there were still a lot of coarse noodle cornbread waiting for Ning Shu. Ning Shu also had a mission, which was to eat all of these coarse noodle cornbread. After eating this every day, Ning Shu was constipated. It was especially painful when he pooped. Furthermore, the godly doctor did not seem to like meat. There was basically nothing oily at home. It was simply too miserable. Ning Shu had not eaten meat in a long time. He was craving meat. Occasionally, there would be villagers who came to the godly doctor for treatment. Ning Shu would watch from the side as the godly doctor treated these people. Then these villagers would give him some vegetables, a bag of flour, or a small piece of meat. Then, Ning Shu's eyes would turn green when he saw the meat. Basically, all of the meat would enter Ning Shu's stomach. The days passed unhurriedly. Ning Shu and the godly doctor's relationship did not improve. They did not even speak much. The godly doctor was busy in the house, while Ning Shu was outside looking after the herb garden. Ning Shu treated taking care of the herb garden as his job. Looking at the herb garden every day, Ning Shu had already memorized all the herbs. When the godly doctor was not busy, he would ask about the characteristics and properties of these herbs. The godly doctor would explain to Ning Shu, but it was usually only once. He did not care if Ning Shu could remember or understand. The godly doctor's herb garden was filled with some common herbs. They were all herbs used to treat some diseases. Ning Shu asked the godly doctor why he did not plant some more precious herbs. The godly doctor only looked at Ning Shu coldly and said that precious herbs had their own way of growing. He did not care about delicate things. Most of the diseases were treated with common herbs. Ning Shu wanted to talk to the godly doctor. For example, his family situation, where were his parents, how old were they, and other topics that could bring them closer together. However, the godly doctor never bothered about him. This made Ning Shu speechless. How could there be such a person in this world? Ning Shu did not have much hope in studying medicine. Moreover, Ning Shu was actually interested in the godly doctor's poison. If he could make some poison, he would have an extra layer of protection during missions. In so many worlds, if he did not have the means to protect himself, he would disappear sooner or later. From then on, Ning Shu would cease to exist. Being alive was better than being dead. Therefore, Ning Shu really wanted to kill the godly doctor, imprison him, and force him to teach him. Ha ha ha, this was just a random thought. Last time was the bone softening powder. Who knew what the next time would be? He just needed to recognize all the herbs in the herb garden. While Ning Shu was munching on the coarse bread, the godly doctor threw a book to Ning Shu. Ning Shu hurriedly wiped his hands and picked up the book. He muttered, why can't I recognize these words? You're holding the book upside down," the godly doctor said coldly. Ning Shu did not look embarrassed at all. He turned the book around and looked at the name of the book. 100 Herbs Collection. Ning Shu flipped the book open. It was filled with herbs. Ning Shu said gratefully, "Master, thank you." The godly doctor's face was very cold. He turned and left. After interacting with the godly doctor for a period of time, Ning Shu did not care about the godly doctor's attitude. Since the godly doctor ignored her, she also learned to ignore the godly doctor's cold face. Although the book's name was 100 Herbs Collection, there were more than 100 types of herbs in the book. The content was very detailed. Ning Shu now did not only take care of the garden, but also read the 100 Herbs Collection and memorize the content in the book. Sometimes, the godly doctor would check Ning Shu's memory. Occasionally, he would ask Ning Shu to dry the herbs according to the book's content. Ning Shu realized that these things were very troublesome. It was so troublesome that Ning Shu had a headache. However, Ning Shu still did it very seriously. She did not complain that the godly doctor did not teach her medical skills. Ning Shu was very grateful that the godly doctor was willing to teach her these things. Moreover, she and the godly doctor were not related in any way. To be honest, Ning Shu felt that the godly doctor was the only male lead with real skills. Although the other male leads were of noble status, they seemed to have nothing to do. They were all lovey-dovey with Mu Yanluo, and did not seem to be doing anything serious. However, in the world of flesh text, there was no need for logic. It was fine as long as they had sex. Ning Shu admired those who were capable. The godly doctor was indeed a capable person. Didn't he have sex with the female lead all day long? Compared to the others, it was too normal. It was just that he was a little cold and hard to communicate with. Ning Shu was very busy every day. She was thinking about the contents of the 100 Herbs collection and working hard to complete the tasks given by the godly doctor. This was the first time Ning Shu got along so well with the male lead since she came to this world. Previously, if she was not fighting with the male lead, she was guarding against these men. Ning Shu wanted to become sworn brothers with the godly doctor, but the godly doctor did not like her. Chapter 176. Ning Shu didn't know how long he had been with the godly doctor, but his days were very fulfilling as he dealt with herbs every day. Then, the godly doctor gave Ning Shu some books. They were all very simple treatment methods, but Ning Shu was still very happy. Everything started from the simplest. For example, now that Ning Shu was injured, he knew what herbs to use to stop the bleeding and reduce the inflammation. This made Ning Shu very satisfied. If the injuries of the villagers were simple, the godly doctor would let Ning Shu treat them. Of course, they were all superficial wounds. If it was an illness that required medicine, Ning Shu wouldn't be the one to treat it. Moreover, Ning Shu didn't have the ability to do so. Ning Shu watched the godly doctor treat the patients. Although the godly doctor was cold, he was still very serious when it came to his work. Ning Shu felt that her relationship with the godly doctor had improved. The most direct manifestation was that the godly doctor no longer let her eat coarse noodles and cornbread every day. Instead, he gave her cornbread that was a mixture of coarse noodles and flour. Although both of them were equally disgusting, the godly doctor sat in front of Ning Shu and stretched out his hand in front of Ning Shu. He said coldly, "From today onwards, you will learn to take my pulse. Take my pulse." Ning Shu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She was a little nervous. To be honest, she was a little afraid of doctors. This made her think of the perverted school doctor. Ning Shu's hand trembled as she pressed on the godly doctor's wrist. She was stunned and said, "Master, you don't have a pulse?" "You pressed the wrong place," the godly doctor said coldly. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu pressed on the godly doctor's pulse. A normal pulse would be strong and rhythmic, but the godly doctor's heartbeat was very chaotic. Ning Shu suspected that she wasn't pressing on the godly doctor's pulse. How could a normal person's pulse be like this? Ning Shu smiled awkwardly at the godly doctor. Then, she pressed on the godly doctor's pulse and confirmed that it was the same result countless times. The godly doctor definitely had a heart condition. "It's been almost an hour. What's the conclusion?" the godly doctor asked coldly. Ning Shu retracted his hand and said, "Your disciple is inexperienced. I can't come up with any conclusions." The godly doctor looked at Ning Shu with disdain and said coldly, "You can't even feel it when it's so obvious. You can't even feel such an obvious pulse? You're really not suited to learn medicine. My illness is a heart disorder. My pulse is so obvious. Can't you tell?" The godly doctor looked at Ning Shu with disappointment. Ning Shu was speechless. Godly doctors, godly doctor. Was godly doctors'? The godly doctor looked at Ning Shu indifferently and said, "This kind of disease is usually brought on when you're in the womb." Ning Shu was speechless. He didn't know how to comfort the godly doctor. This kind of disease was incurable. Even in the modern era, where medical expertise was advanced, there was no cure. The only way was to change the heart. Ning Shu finally understood that the godly doctor didn't have any emotions. This kind of disease was taboo to have emotional fluctuations. He was called a godly doctor, yet he couldn't even treat his own disease. It was understandable why the godly doctor wasn't interested in having sex. He was the complete opposite of the other male leads who were like wolves and tigers. This kind of vigorous activity wasn't good for the body. If he got too excited, he might get sick and die on top of Mu Yanluo. As for the fact that he joined Mu Yanluo's harem in the end, he probably still liked Mu Yanluo. Ning Shu looked at the godly doctor with pity. The godly doctor ignored Ning Shu's gaze. Ning Shu asked, "How do you treat this kind of disease?" "It's an incurable disease," Ning Shu said casually. The godly doctor looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu immediately changed his words. No, what I meant was that this kind of disease can't be cured easily. However, if you take good care of it and don't get too agitated, you'll be just like a normal person. What medicine should I take? The godly doctor looked at Ning Shu and asked coldly. Ning Shu said, use the heart-nourishing pill to dissolve the water. What kind of herbs are used to make the heart-nourishing pill? The godly doctor asked. Ning Shu answered the godly doctor's question seriously. In the end, Ning Shu shook his head and said, you're not qualified. You don't have the right to inherit my legacy. I don't want the things that Master passed to me to end up in the hands of someone like you. Ning Shu was speechless. What's wrong with her? Master, what's my problem? Ning Shu asked. Which part of me is not qualified? I can change it. I think I can still be saved. Come up with a new question. The godly doctor said indifferently. You're a woman. Damn. What kind of reason was this? Gender discrimination? Alright, this reason was too strong. Ning Shu didn't know how to refute it. Knowing that the godly doctor had a heart condition, Ning Shu didn't dare to provoke him for no reason. She even wanted to make some heart-nourishing pills for him. Ning Shu felt that this godly doctor treated her well, so she should treat him better too. Kindness must be repaid with kindness. The most precious herb in the heart-nourishing pill was ginseng. Ginseng was a herb that nourished qi. Ning Shu carried the bamboo basket and prepared to go to the mountains to try her luck and see if she could get some ginseng. Of course, Ning Shu also knew that she might have made a wasted trip. Ginseng wasn't that easy to get. Ning Shu didn't have a single cent on her now. She was also separated from the secret guard in Yuelan. Fortunately, she had given half of her things to Yuelan. The secret guard and Yuelan had settled down. She didn't know when she would meet them again. Where are you going? The godly doctor asked when he saw Ning Shu carrying the bamboo basket. Ning Shu said, I'm going into the mountains to pick herbs. The godly doctor didn't say anything. He waited until Ning Shu was far away before he said coldly to Ning Shu, be careful. Ning Shu was stunned for a moment before she smiled and said, I know. Ning Shu wandered around the mountains, using a stick to push aside the thorns. He bent down to look for ginseng. To be honest, Ning Shu was skeptical about whether he could find ginseng. It was mainly because this thing was too precious. Thinking back to how he had generously given Hidahua's father a ginseng, Ning Shu's heart ached. He guessed that the ginseng had already been taken away by Jingruhua. After walking for a while, he was hungry. Ning Shu took out his cornbread to eat. As expected, he didn't find any ginseng today. However, he did find some other herbs. It was considered a harvest. Ning Shu once again decided to add all his attributes to his luck. It wasn't good to be too unlucky. It was a waste of time. When Ning Shu returned to the bamboo hut, the sky was already dark. Moreover, the godly doctor was still waiting for him at the door. White clothes under the sunset. Ning Shu suddenly felt touched. It was the first time Ning Shu had such feelings for a male lead ever since he came to this world. This feeling had nothing to do with love. It was just that the relationship between people could be so peaceful. There was no need for intense hysteria or hurt. Wasn't this kind of relationship beautiful? Chapter 177. Ning Shu walked in front of the godly doctor and smiled. Master, were you waiting for me? The godly doctor replied coldly, no. Ning Shu did not mind and asked the godly doctor, Master, have you eaten? The godly doctor ignored Ning Shu and waited for Ning Shu to put down the bamboo basket on his back before saying coldly, there's some food on the table. Ning Shu entered the house and saw that there were dishes and meat on the table. Furthermore, there were big steamed buns. Ning Shu immediately drooled and asked the godly doctor in surprise, Master, are these all for me? These were sent by a villager today. I've already eaten, and these are my leftovers. The godly doctor said, and went to the yard to arrange the herbs. Ning Shu did not care if the godly doctor had already eaten. He sat on the chair and started eating. Previously, he had been eating cornbread. Now that he could eat meat, Ning Shu felt very blissful. A person's life was all for this mouth. After Ning Shu ate, the godly doctor tested Ning Shu's memory of some herbs and prescriptions. Then he asked, what herbs are you going to pick? Have you picked any? Ning Shu asked. Herbs have to be found according to their characteristics. There's no need to run all over the mountain. Ning Shu looked at the godly doctor and asked curiously, Master, how did you know that I was running all over the mountain? The godly doctor looked coldly at Ning Shu. Some of the herbs you picked are yin, some are yang, and some can only be found near the water. You still haven't passed your homework. The godly doctor frowned and looked at Ning Shu. Damn, what a meticulous person. If he could not be a godly doctor, he could be a godly detective. Ning Shu felt that he should learn from the godly doctor, and learn humbly. Master, your disciple will remember your teachings. Ning Shu said seriously. From now on, your disciple will be the new generation of female godly doctor. The godly doctor looked at Ning Shu, as if he had lost his mind. He turned and went back into the house, ignoring Ning Shu. The next day, Ning Shu went up the mountain to pick herbs. The godly doctor asked Ning Shu coldly, What herbs are you picking? It's not safe for a girl to be alone in the mountain. Don't go. I'll get someone to bring you whatever you need. Ning Shu said, It's okay, I'll go look again today. If I can't find it. The godly doctor did not say anything, and went back into the house. Ning Shu carried the bamboo basket, and went into the mountain to look for ginseng. It was said that ginseng could run. Ning Shu felt that all the ginseng on the mountain had run away. In the end, Ning Shu found a stalk of ginseng that was quite old. If it was made into a heart-nourishing pill, it would be enough for the godly doctor to eat for a long time. Ning Shu felt that the godly doctor was very poor, and did not have much money. The villagers who came to her for treatment all gave her local specialties. Usually, the godly doctor did not take any medicine. Sometimes she would perform acupuncture on him. Suddenly, he felt that this guy was quite pitiful. Ning Shu stuck his butt out, and spent almost half a day just to dig out the ginseng. He had to dig out all the roots of the ginseng without breaking the skin. In the end, he dug it out. It was as thick as a pinky finger. If he sold it, he could sell it for a lot of money. Ning Shu carefully tied the ginseng with a red string and wrapped it up. He was ready to go back. On the way back, Ning Shu could faintly hear a child crying. Ning Shu was so scared that his hair stood on end. Could it be some kind of monster? Ning Shu quickened his steps. The child's voice became louder. Ning Shu felt that the child should be nearby. To go or not to go? To go or not to go? Ning Shu shook his head. He decided not to go. Curiosity killed the cat. The child's cries echoed in his ears. He was still calling for his mother. In the end, Ning Shu still went. What's there to be afraid of? I'm the female lead. Nothing will happen to me. Ning Shu followed the voice. He went over the mountain, and saw a child crying on the official road. Ning Shu walked over to the child. The child's body was dirty. Ning Shu coughed. The child seemed to be frightened by Ning Shu. He turned around and saw Ning Shu. His eyes were filled with fear as he sobbed and hiccuped. Are you the bad guy who came to catch me? The child asked aloud. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Have you ever seen a bad guy as beautiful as me? Don't be afraid. I'm not a bad guy. Little kid, why are you here alone? The child cried out. Ning Shu was a little tired from walking. He put down the bamboo basket on his back and sat next to the child. He waited for the child to stop crying. Probably because there was someone next to him. The child was not afraid anymore. Ning Shu said, Auntie, I can't find my father. I can't find my mother. Call me sister. I'm not that old. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and looked at the child. The child shouted, Sister, I can't find my parents. Where are your parents? Ning Shu asked. You're not a monster from the mountains, are you? Wow, sister, don't scare me. Are you a monster? The child was scared and retreated. Ning Shu then asked the child where his parents were. The child cried and told her what had happened. It was that the child and his family had gone on a trip and encountered bandits. His parents had lured the bandits away, and then asked the child to wait here. However, the child had waited for 2 days, and his parents still hadn't come. Ning Shu took out some steamed buns and gave them to him. Did you remember the wrong place? Your parents didn't agree to meet you here. Yes, my father said that it was 5 miles down this road. The child said with certainty. Ning Shu almost fainted. Did such a small child know how far 5 miles was? Did you get the wrong place? The child nibbled on the steamed bun and cried. Yes. Ning Shu stood up, patted the dust on his butt and said, You continue to wait. I'll go first. The child pulled the corner of Ning Shu's clothes and shouted, Sister, don't go. What if I don't go? Ning Shu looked at him. Don't you still have to wait for your parents? Sister, don't go. I'm scared. The child clung to Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu had no choice but to take the child back to the bamboo house. The miracle doctor saw that there were two people when they went out. He looked coldly at Ning Shu and said, Explain. Looking at his expression, one would think that a husband saw his wife cheating. Of course, Ning Shu was overthinking. The child hid behind Ning Shu and looked at the doctor's cold face. He pouted and looked like he was about to cry again. Ning Shu explained the child's origin very simply and concluded, If something really happened to this child's parents, this child might have to live with us. I found you an heir. He's a boy, Ning Shu said, and pulled down the child's pants to check. The child cried and grabbed his pants. I'm really a boy. See, I found you an heir. From now on, you have someone to pass on your legacy. Ning Shu smiled and said to the doctor. Chapter 178. The godly doctor was born with a sarcastic face. Even when facing a child, he didn't have much of an expression. Logically speaking, Ning Shu had found a child for the godly doctor to inherit his legacy. Even if the godly doctor was perfunctory, he should at least say a few words of concern to the child. However, he didn't. The child stayed in the bamboo house, and the responsibility of taking care of the child fell on Ning Shu's shoulders. This made Ning Shu quite frustrated. Children were the most troublesome things to deal with. After the child was cleaned up, the child said that he was scared and insisted that Ning Shu sleep with him. Ning Shu said that he was as pure as ice and as pure as jade. How could he sleep with a man? Although this child was only 5 or 6 years old, he was still a man. The godly doctor didn't say anything about Ning Shu's uncaring actions. Ning Shu said, Have the herbs you picked arrived? Oh right, after the child's disturbance, Ning Shu had forgotten that he had gotten the ginseng. He took out the ginseng from the bamboo basket and said to the godly doctor, Look, I got the ginseng. I'm going to make a heart-nourishing pill for you. The godly doctor said coldly, That thing has no effect on me. You don't have to make it. It's a waste of good stuff. How can it not be? Don't you have a heart problem? You'll be fine as long as you take good care of it, Ning Shu said. I got the ginseng especially for you. The godly doctor looked at the ginseng in Ning Shu's hand and said coldly, This ginseng is pretty good, but you didn't pay attention when you were digging it. Some parts of the skin have already been damaged. I told you to look and learn more, but you ruined all the good stuff. The godly doctor seemed to hate Ning Shu for failing to live up to his expectations. Ning Shu didn't mind and said, It's fine. I'll make it into a heart-nourishing pill soon. I'm not going to buy it. Don't worry about the appearance. The godly doctor said coldly, Whether or not you want to sell it, you should ensure that the medicinal properties of the herbs are preserved. You ruined the medicinal properties of the herbs. This isn't just a matter of appearance. Ning Shu quickly nodded and said, I know. I will pay attention in the future. Ning Shu's skin was the thickest that the godly doctor had ever seen. No matter what he said to her, she didn't seem to get angry. Even if he scolded her so harshly, she still didn't take it to heart. Was her heart big or not? The next day, under the little radish's pleading, Ning Shu took the child to look for his parents. They didn't go far, they just wandered around. The godly doctor had wanted to tag along, but Ning Shu considered the godly doctor's condition and decided that trekking was not suitable for him. Little Radish Head was quite smart. He followed the escape route and went back to search. Finally, he found 2 corpses in a forest. The corpses were unrecognizable. The clothes on the woman's body were gone. It was obvious that something had happened to her before she died. Little Radish Head clenched his teeth and didn't let himself cry. He helped his mother put on her clothes and then said to Ning Shu, Sister, I want to cremate my parents. Ning Shu was a little surprised. The ancient people were particular about burial. Cremation meant that there would be no complete corpse. Why did the little radish head want to cremate his parents? I want to keep my parents' ashes with me. Little radish head clenched his teeth, his cheeks trembling. Okay. Ning Shu nodded the little radish head. Little radish head personally lit the fire and held a jar of ashes in his hands. Ning Shu asked, "What are your plans in the future? Do you have any relatives back home? If you don't, you can learn medicine from my master." There are relatives at home, but those relatives are not relatives. I'm afraid that they will be very happy if something happens to my father. I'm not going back. The little radish head shook his head. Although his face looked young, his words were not young at all. Children from rich families matured early. Oh right. Do you know what the robber who robbed you looked like? Ning Shu asked. Little radish head said. It was a very good-looking man. Ning Shu's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He said, "Did he look like a scholar?" Little radish head nodded. Yes. The moment he opened his mouth, he said that my father was selling things at a high price and was harming the people. My father explained that my family was doing business honestly and didn't raise the price. But that person just didn't listen. Damn, this Chinibu was definitely Wenruhua. So it was like this. He flaunted his righteousness, but what right did he have to kill people? Who gave him the right to take other people's lives? He was clearly the one who was angry and wanted to punish others. Ning Shu wanted to kill this person. Let's go. Ning Shu led Little Radish Head back to the bamboo house. The godly doctor was waiting at the door for Ning Shu and Little Radish Head to return. Seeing the jar in Little Radish Head's hand, he said coldly, "Wash up and eat." Little Radish Head placed the ashes in the room and ate while crying. The godly doctor picked up some food and placed it in the child's bowl. He said lightly, "From today onwards, you will learn medicine from me." "Thank you, master." Little Radish Head held back his tears and said to the godly doctor, "It's too early to call me master. There are still some ceremonies for an official disciple. These things can't be omitted." The godly doctor said lightly. Ning Shu felt uncomfortable all over. What kind of ceremony was this? From the very beginning, this godly doctor had never thought of accepting her as his disciple. He made him fertilize and weed. He only knew how to torment him. The next day, Little Radish Head first bathed and burned incense. Then he kowtowed and ate herbs. After a series of complicated ceremonies, he became the godly doctor's disciple. Moreover, he was the only disciple. Ning Shu looked on enviously from the side. Little Radish Head, Suyu became the godly doctor's disciple. Ning Shu's status was a little awkward. She was not the godly doctor's disciple. The godly doctor said lightly, "From now on, you can call her senior sister. Although she is useless, she has been learning from me for a period of time. She became a disciple earlier than you." What did he mean by useless? His words were too harsh. "Senior sister." Suyu called out to Ning Shu, who had a ferocious look on her face. Ning Shu chuckled and called out, "Junior brother." Suyu began to study under pressure. The godly doctor gave him many tasks. Suyu seemed to want to forget the pain of losing his parents, and forgot to eat and sleep. Although Ning Shu was not the godly doctor's disciple, the godly doctor was also strict with Ning Shu. Ning Shu did not say anything. This was a good opportunity to learn. However, Ning Shu's mind was always on the godly doctor's prescription. He did not know why it was an aphrodisiac. To a person like the godly doctor, this was an extremely low-level mistake. Moreover, the aphrodisiac was not good for the godly doctor's body. That kind of thing would cause a person to become excited and unable to control themselves. Blood would flow very quickly. He did not know why the godly doctor did not have a heart attack in the storyline. It was probably because of the protagonist's halo. "Master, you don't need to make any medicine. If you want, let your disciple do it for you. If it doesn't work, there is still Suyu. Let him do it. A disciple should serve his master, right?" Ning Shu said to Suyu. "Yes, master." Suyu quickly nodded. Chapter 179. The godly doctor said coldly, "What kind of medicine can a useless person like you concoct? Doctors and whatnot are so annoying. Are all capable people so direct with their words?" Ning Shu pulled Suyu over and said, "I'm useless, but little junior brother is. Let him do everything in the future." Suyu frowned. She felt that she had been tricked by eldest senior sister. I don't know how to concoct any medicine recently. The godly doctor looked coldly at Ningshu. Have you fertilized the herbs? Why are you spouting nonsense here? Ningshu was speechless. Ningshu felt that the godly doctor had become more cheerful. The most direct manifestation was that his sarcasm towards her became more and more vicious. She also had a sensitive and fragile heart. If he kept mocking her like this, she would also feel sad. Ningshu pursed her lips and instructed the godly doctor. You must not concoct any medicine. The days passed slowly like this. The godly doctor did not concoct any medicine, which made Ningshu heave a sigh of relief. However, Ningshu's relief came too quickly. Today, when Ningshu was weeding, he heard people coming towards the bamboo house. There were quite a few of them. The godly doctor lives here? A voice rang out. When Ningshu heard this voice, it was as if he was struck by lightning. He rushed into the kitchen and rubbed the ashes on his face and neck. Senior sister, what are you doing? Seeing Ningshu like this, Suyu said, You're being naughty again. Master will scold you later. Little junior brother, there are people outside. Go and greet them. Your eldest senior sister is a woman. It's not good to entertain men. Ningshu hid in the kitchen and said to Suyu, What the fuck? What the fuck? Why was Luo Zhenyan here? Why did the regent come to this remote place? This didn't make sense. Could it be that he knew she was here and came to find her? Go and see what they are talking about with the master. Ningshu handed the kettle to Suyu. Go and pour some tea for the guests. Suyu carried the kettle to the central room. Ningshu paced back and forth in the kitchen alone, hoping that Luo Zhenyan wasn't here to look for her. Now that the secret guards weren't around, if she was caught, she would definitely be dead. These people were really good at torturing people. How was it? What did they say? Ningshu asked Suyu as he entered the room. What did they say? Suyu's tone was a little excited as she said, Those people want master to treat the emperor. Shh. Ningshu let out a long sigh, wiped the cold sweat on his head and asked, What did master say? Master didn't agree immediately. Then, that person said that he would come again tomorrow, Suyu said. After Luo Zhenyan and the others left, Ningshu sneaked out. He walked to the central room and asked the godly doctor, Master, are you going to the capital? The godly doctor saw the black ash on Ningshu's face and frowned. What happened to your face? Don't worry about my face for now. Are you going to the capital to treat the emperor? Ningshu asked. All the land under the heavens belongs to the emperor. As long as I'm on this land, I can't refuse. I've refused this time, but I'll agree again next time, the godly doctor said calmly. Ningshu disagreed. But is your body okay? We're not far from the capital. Are you hiding from those people? The godly doctor asked a completely unrelated question, and Ningshu didn't know how to react for a moment. Are you afraid of those people? The godly doctor asked again. This guy was really observant. Ningshu didn't say anything, and the godly doctor didn't ask any more questions. Suyu wanted to go to the capital as well, so she begged the godly doctor, Master, take me with you. I've never been to the palace before. Stay at home with your senior sister. Don't neglect your studies, the godly doctor said calmly. Then he said to Ningshu, Take good care of the house. Can I not go? How did this thing come about? It felt like the plot had changed beyond recognition. The godly doctor said coldly, Pack your things. Since you're afraid of those people, don't come out to see me off. Also, don't let them see you. Ningshu sighed and said, Okay, master. I'll prepare the things. Master, there's only me and Suyu in this house. A woman and a child. It's really too dangerous. Master, why don't you teach us how to make poison? Ningshu said his purpose. The godly doctor glanced at Ningshu and nodded. Okay. Ningshu almost jumped up in joy. The godly doctor taught Ningshu and Suyu how to make poison. Poison is made by mixing poisonous herbs or poison together. It can also be made by increasing the dosage of certain herbs. The godly doctor gave Ningshu the poison scripture. It was filled with the methods of making poison. When it came to making poison, Ningshu learned it very quickly. The godly doctor said coldly, You learn these crooked things pretty quickly. Ningshu laughed. Keep this book and study it yourself. I'll be gone for a long time. Take good care of Suyu, the godly doctor said calmly. I know. Don't worry, master. Ningxu promised. The godly doctor looked coldly at Ningxu. When Ningxu met his gaze, he was stunned for a moment before asking, Master, is there anything else you want me to do? Nothing. You don't have to send me off tomorrow. The godly doctor turned and closed the door. Wait, master. Ningxu pushed the door open and took out a bottle of medicine. Master, these are the heart-nourishing pills I made for you. The godly doctor looked at Ningxu and poured out a heart-nourishing pill. He sniffed it and looked at its color. You didn't make it well. The color and medicinal properties are not good. You've ruined the ginseng. I made this with Suyu. Master, take care of your health when you're outside. Ningxu had automatically ignored the godly doctor's sarcasm. Oh, it was made by Suyu. It's not bad to make heart-nourishing pills at her age. The godly doctor said to Suyu. Next time, take note of the fineness of the herbs. Ningxu was speechless. The next day, the godly doctor took the luggage and left with Luo Junyan and the rest. Suyu sent the godly doctor off at the door while Ningxu hid in the kitchen with a face full of soot. Senior sister, master has left. Suyu walked in and told Ningxu. Ningxu nodded and washed the soot off his face. He said to Suyu, Why are you still here? Go and memorize the medical books. Senior sister, master isn't home. Let's go catch some fish. Suyu looked at Ningxu with anticipation. There are many fish in the stream. Let's have grilled fish for lunch. This kid was so obedient and hardworking in front of the godly doctor. Now that the godly doctor had left, he showed this side of himself. However, this kid had lost both his parents. He was lucky that he didn't become autistic. Ningxu nodded and said, Okay, let's have grilled fish for lunch. Ningxu took the poison book and followed Suyu to the stream. He read by the bank and checked on Suyu's condition. You're a beauty. Come with me. A sexy voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 180. When Ningxu heard the voice, he looked around but didn't see anyone. Suyu, who was catching fish in the stream, also came ashore. She hid behind Ningxu and said in fear, Senior sister, is there a ghost? I'm so scared. Senior sister, you have to protect me. You're so young, why are you so superstitious? Ningxu pulled Suyu out from behind him. You're a man. You have to protect a woman, don't you know? Hiding behind a woman like this isn't manly at all. Hee interesting. A person jumped down from a tree. His hair was loose and was casually tied up with a black ribbon. He was wearing black clothes with golden embroidery. The most important thing was that his face was androgynous. He was so beautiful that it was like a dream, and his whole body carried an evil aura. Standing there, he looked like an illusory datura flower, evil and beautiful. Ningxu looked at this person and said indifferently, My master isn't home. You don't have to look for him. The man stared blankly for a moment, then smiled. His smile was devilishly charming. His toes touched the surface of the water, and he flew in front of Ningxu. Ningxu immediately smelled the fragrance on his body. Wow, you're so powerful. You actually flew over. Suyu looked at the man with admiration. The man looked at Ningxu and asked, What's your birthday? Look, he didn't even ask for his name, and directly asked for his birthday. Ningxu pulled Suyu back a step and said indifferently, This is a secret. What if you find out my birthday and want to kill me? The man was speechless. Ningxu pulled Suyu and quickly ran. He looked back and saw that the demon sex leader didn't chase after them. Instead, he looked at her with interest. After returning to the bamboo house, Ningxu said to Suyu, This person is very dangerous. You have to be careful in the future. Ningxu prepared a lot of dry food for Suyu and said, You have to be careful when you're alone at home. You have poison on you. If you encounter any danger, use poison powder. When Suyu saw that Ningxu was giving such detailed instructions, she suddenly had a bad premonition in her heart. She pulled on Ningxu's sleeve and anxiously asked, Senior sister, what's wrong? Where are you going? It's okay. I think I'll have to go out soon. Be careful when you're alone at home, Ningxu said. In the plot, The demon sect master came here to ask the divine doctor to treat his internal injuries. At that time, he took a fancy to Mu Yanluo and learned that Mu Yanluo was born on a Een day, Een month, Een hour, so he directly kidnapped her. She would probably have to leave with this guy later. But this time, he was going to make sure that this guy didn't get away with it. Senior sister, don't go. I'm afraid of being alone at home. Suyu pulled on Ningxu, refusing to let Ningxu leave. Yo, beauty, where are you going? Could it be that you've been mesmerized by this lord's beauty, and want to elope with me? The sect master's voice came from outside the room. When Ningxu went out, he saw the sect master sitting leisurely on a stone bench. His posture was enchanting, and his actions carried a kind of charming charm. However, it was clear that he was a man, beautiful, flirtatious, and evil. The sect master's appearance was the highest among the 7 Calabash brothers. Gong Wumei looked at Ningxu and then glanced at Suyu. I haven't seen him for a while, and he actually took in 2 disciples. In a flash, Gong Wumei moved in front of Ningxu. His slender, white, and jade-like fingers lifted Ningxu's chin. He sized him up and said wickedly, "You're still a virgin. I thought you were that Ice Mountain's woman. He didn't even touch you. So he really thinks of you as his disciple." See, this was a man who had countless women. With one look, he could tell whether a woman was a virgin or not. Ningxu took a step back and said coldly, "You're late. Someone from the palace came to ask master to treat a noble in the palace." That's not bad. With you around, this trip wasn't in vain. Gong Wumei looked at Ningxu with his peach blossom eyes. Since you're Ice Mountain's disciple, what have you learned? My senior sister didn't learn anything at all. Master taught me all his medical skills. Don't make things difficult for my senior sister. I'll treat you. Suyu stood in front of Ningxu righteously. My senior sister is an idiot. She didn't learn anything at all. Ningxu was speechless. She didn't like hearing this, even though it was to protect her. Ningxu pulled the little radish head behind him and said pretentiously, I don't need to take your pulse. Just by looking at your face, I know what's wrong with you. Suyu looked at Ningxu with the senior sister. Stop messing around, look. Gong Wumei raised his eyebrows and said with interest, I've always been patient with beauties. Tell me what's wrong with me. Ningxu said with disdain, excessive indulgence. You're possessed by the devil. Every time you circulate your qi, you feel like your body is on fire. You have to have sex with a woman of the Een month, Een day, and Een time. Otherwise, your meridians will explode. But the woman you have sex with won't live for long. Gong Wumei's body trembled. His hand that was touching the jade on his waist paused. He put down the jade. Ningxu laughed and said with a sinister expression, Did Ice Mountain tell you about me? Did Ice Mountain tell you about me? You're thinking too much. Master didn't tell me about you. Do you think you're some big shot? Ningxu said with disdain. He looked at the beautiful Gong Wumei and asked, Are all the demon sect's leaders this beautiful? The demon sect's leaders had to be beauties. Oh, how do you know that I'm the demon sect's leader? Gong Wumei raised his eyebrows and looked at Ningxu ambiguously. You're an interesting woman. Come with me to Wuyang Palace. I'll give you extreme happiness. Ningxu was speechless. Senior sister. Suyu grabbed Ningxu's clothes. Her face was pale. She naturally understood Gong Wumei's meaning. Perhaps her senior sister would have the same ending as her mother. Ningxu patted Suyu's back and said, It's okay. I'm fine. Woman, do you want to go with me? You can choose not to go, but your little junior brother will lose his life. This sovereign only has to move a finger, and his little life will be gone. Gong Wumei didn't feel any pressure when killing a person. His expression didn't change at all. Clearly, he was a person who killed people like flax. Ningxu wasn't scared. I advise you not to do that. Wait until my master comes back. He'll definitely come and find you. You can offend anyone but not a doctor. Beauty, you're really interesting. You were also born in a Een month, Een day, Een hour, right? Gong Wumei stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. He looked very charming and sexy. It made people's heartbeats lose their rhythm. A man being so charming was really strange. As a woman, Ningxu felt her dignity was being challenged. She really wanted to find a group of men to take turns with this guy. Chapter 181. No, I have a pure yang constitution. If you do that with me, your blood vessels will definitely explode. Ning Shu denied that he was born in a Een month, Een day and Een hour. Gong Wumei raised her eyebrows and said with interest, "No need to quibble. I can feel my body's desire for you. Ning Shu, come with me to the Endless Palace. Since you are a disciple of Ice Mountain and know about my situation, then come with me." Gong Wumei held onto Ning Shu's waist and moved close to Ning Shu's ear. She breathed out hot air, almost touching Ning Shu's ear, and said with a sexy voice, "You don't have the right to reject me. Ants don't have the right to reject me." Ning Shu's expression was indifferent and said with disdain, "Can you not talk so close to me? Do you know that you have bad breath?" Gong Wumei. Ning Shu also knew that he had to go. This was the plot. Ning Shu said to Suyu with tears in her eyes, "Stay at home and wait for master to come back. Senior sister will be fine. You also have to take care of the medicine field at home. You have to do the fertilizing and weeding." Suyu nodded and said, "Senior sister, wait for master to come back. I will go with master to save you." Ning Shu patted Suyu's head, picked up the package and said to Gong Wumei, "I am your doctor now. I ask for more benefits. Sure, for beauties, especially beauties with purine constitution, I have to be patient." Gong Wumei's pink lips curved into a charming arc. "Wait until you reach the Endless Palace. You will realize that it is a paradise. You will never want to come back." The two of them left the bamboo house. Ning Shu asked Gong Wumei, "Are we going to walk to your Endless Palace?" "Of course not." Gong Wumei curled her fingers and blew a loud sound. After a while, someone sent a luxurious carriage over. The driver was a disciple of the demonic sect. "Greetings, sect master. The carriage is here." Gong Wumei looked at Ning Shu and said with a faint smile, "Let's go up." Ning Shu hugged the bundle and got into the carriage. Gong Wumei smiled and also got into the carriage. He sat across from Ning Shu and looked at Ning Shu with his peach blossom eyes. He supported his chin and charmingly asked, "Beauty, what is your name?" "Lil Red," Ning Shu replied. "Little Red." When Gong Wumei was reading out her name, his voice sounded very sexy, causing people's heart to itch. "Beauty, even your name has such personality. This sovereign likes it very much." "Thank you for the compliment," Ning Shu replied seriously. Then he seemed to have thought of something and asked, "It's not easy to find a woman with a Een month, a Een day, and a Een hour. If this woman is extremely ugly, do you want to do it?" This probability was similar to winning the lottery, and Mu Yanluo's physique was exactly like winning the lottery. If this woman's appearance was just passable, then for the sake of his own life, would Gong Wumei bite the bullet and do it? This was obviously not a pleasant topic. Gong Wumei's face sank. Ning Shu said, "If you are about to starve to death, you won't be able to eat the dusty food on the ground." "Of course I will eat it," Ning Shu said without hesitation. "Life is the most precious thing." "Oh," Ning Shu suddenly understood. "So you are the one who will do it?" Seeing that Gong Wumei's complexion was somewhat bad, Ning Shu didn't want to provoke him. Gong Wumei said, "That's why this sovereign is pleasantly surprised to see such a beautiful woman with a pure Een physique." Ning Shu and Gong Wumei sneered. They closed their eyes and ignored him. "I'm afraid this time. I won't let you push me down so easily. I'll let you have the poison on my body." The devil sect was located on a high mountain that was easy to defend and hard to attack. They directly penetrated through the mountainside and lived in a cave like a mouse. Gong Wumei still had the nerve to call the place he lived in Endless Palace. He was simply shameless. Ning Shu got off the carriage and looked up at the mountain. He clicked his tongue and had a look of disdain. Gong Wumei looked at Ning Shu. "What's with your expression? Are you looking down on my Endless Palace? You also know that your devil sect is annoying, so you came here to hide." Ning Shu curled his lips. "You captured so many women. Aren't you afraid that the righteous sects will encircle and annihilate you?" Gong Wumei sneered. "So what? This sovereign wants to see who dares to encircle this sovereign." Gong Wumei brought Ning Shu to the front of the suspension bridge. Ning Shu said, "After crossing this suspension bridge, you will reach this sovereign's Endless Palace." Ning Shu looked at the suspension bridge and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. How was this a suspension bridge? It was just an iron chain that was as thick as an infant's arm. Normal people would not be able to walk on it at all. They would definitely fall down. Ning Shu asked in a deadpan manner. How am I supposed to go over? Don't tell me that I have to walk over myself. If you continue to be shameless, I'm going back. Gong Wumei directly held onto Ning Shu's waist and clamped her, then walked onto the iron chain. Ning Shu looked at the iron chain swinging up and down. Below them was a bottomless white cliff. Ning Shu screamed at the top of her lungs. Oh my god, ah! Gong Wumei used his qi and stepped on the iron chain to reach the other side. He hugged Ning Shu tightly and said evilly, Beauty, don't be afraid. How could this sovereign bear to let anything happen to you? Ning Shu silently looked at him and said, Let go a bit. If you continue hugging me like this, your blood vessels will burst. Gong Wumei raised his eyebrows and said evilly, To be able to burst blood vessels on a beauty's body, this sovereign is willing to die. You're really willing? Ning Shu expressionlessly looked at Gong Wumei. Gong Wumei slowly moved closer to Ning Shu. Of course I'm willing. To die on your body, of course I'm willing. How many times have I told you that you have bad breath? You always talk so close to me. Do you know that you are really unbearable? Do you often have constipation? Your mouth is so smelly. Not only are you suffering from qi deviation, you also have a problem with your stomach. Could it be that no one has ever told you that you have bad breath? Ning Shu took a step back and said in disgust. Gong Wumei's face twitched for a bit. Then he immediately laughed. He stretched out his finger and hooked Ning Shu's hair and said indifferently, You are the first woman to speak to me like this. The women that I caught before were either crying and begging for mercy, or were infatuated with this sovereign's beauty and submitted to this sovereign's crotch. You mocked this sovereign like this. Could it be that you are not afraid that this sovereign will kill you? Ning Shu shook his head and said, I am a doctor. What I said is the truth. Let me tell you, the problem with your body is my responsibility. As for why you didn't discover that you have bad breath, I reckon that it is because they are afraid of you. So they didn't tell you. After all, you are the sect master of demon sect, who kills people like scything flax. Are you relying on the fact that this sovereign doesn't want to part with you? So you are so impudent? Gong Wumei pulled the hair in his hand. Ning Shu cried out in pain. Fuck, it hurts. Of course I know that you don't want to part with me. Right now, you are already unable to suppress the injury in your body. So you went to find my master. Ning Shu rubbed his scalp that was pulled. Chapter 182. Gong Wumei let go of Ning Shu's hair, then placed his finger on his nose and took a sniff. His thin pink lips curled up. Beauty's fragrance. What is he trying to do with this beast-like appearance? Let me tell you, don't seduce me, I won't fall for it. This is a man that should have a rotten dick. God knows how many women have been defiled by him. Furthermore, all of the women that he had slept with before, all of them did not have long to live. Ning Shu despised this fella endlessly in his heart. Even if he is good-looking, he is still unable to withstand this beast-like appearance. Let's go. Gong Wumei walked in front and entered the cave. From the outside, the cave looked especially shabby. However, upon entering, it was just like entering an imperial palace. It was incomparably luxurious. Inside the cave, there were huge luminous pearls, and light muslin was dancing in the air. Ning Shu touched the luminous pearls, and an astonished expression appeared on his face. Just how much is this worth? Gong Wumei raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. If you like it, I will give it to you. Ning Shu retracted his hand. I am just casually looking at it. Furthermore, this thing does not have any fucking use other than lighting. It is simply trash. I don't like it at all. I like some practical things. Practical things? Gong Wumei raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu, then said with a devilish charm. There are only things that you can't say. There is nothing that I can't get. Big brother Tom Su is sick, he needs to be treated. Ning Shu said indifferently. A devil sect disciple who was wearing black clothes walked in and said to Gong Wumei, Sect master, another woman has died. Gong Wumei's expression was very cold as he said indifferently, "You don't have to tell me these things. Throw the dead woman, and the woman that is about to die out of Endless Palace." Yes. The devil sect disciple waved his hand, and two people carried a woman out. This woman's face was ashen. Her fingernails were purplish black, and she was not breathing at all. It seemed like she was already dead. Ning Shu looked at Gong Wumei's expressionless face. Gong Wumei was as indifferent as a dead ant, which made Ning Shu's back feel a chill. "Throw out those women who can no longer heal me. They're taking up space." Gong Wumei sat on the chair, flicked his hair, and said indifferently, "Yes." After a while, Ning Shu saw many women being driven out. These women's faces were pale, as if they hadn't seen the sun for a long time. Their faces were haggard, and there was a black aura between their eyebrows. It seemed like they didn't have long to live. Some of the women actually had white hair on their heads. It was unknown whether it was because they were already that old, or because they had been ravaged by Gong Wumei. When these women saw Gong Wumei, they all cried and begged Gong Wumei for mercy. Their faces were either filled with despair or numbness. Ning Shu looked at all of this. He watched as these women were driven out of the Endless Palace by Gong Wumei. The fate that awaited these women was death. "Wait a minute," Ning Shu said. Gong Wumei lazily looked at Ning Shu, and used his hair to brush Ning Shu's face. He leaned close to Ning Shu and breathed out hot air. "What's wrong, beauty? Do you have a problem? Let me take a look at these people." Ning Shu took a step back and walked in front of a woman. He took her hand and felt her pulse. The vitality of her 5 organs had been destroyed. Her pulse was very heavy and weak. Ning Shu suspected that there would be no pulse in the next second. Her internal organs had already collapsed. Ning Shu shook his head. These people probably wouldn't live for more than a month. They were just struggling at death's door. After a rough calculation, there were more than 10 people here. Just the number of women who were about to die was already so many. Then Gong Wumei probably captured even more women. To capture so many women of the Een month, Een day, Een time, how much manpower and resources would it take? Gong Wumei looked at Ning Shu with a face full of curiosity. Coupled with his beautiful appearance, don't mention how moving he was. He was so pure and beautiful. However, the words that came out of his mouth were very vicious. "When are they going to die?" Ning Shu looked at Gong Wumei, and said indifferently, "You have really sinned." Gong Wumei immediately laughed. "It's not that I have sinned. During this period of time, I have given them a rich life. I have given them the greatest happiness. Rather than living a mediocre life, I would rather live such a brilliant life. Do you all like me?" Gong Wumei looked at these women with a gentle and charming smile. "Do you all not like the days when you are together with me?" "I like it." Some of the women looked at Gong Wumei with a somewhat intoxicated expression. Some of the women had a look of hatred on their faces, and some of the women had a look of fear on their faces. Some of them are willing to live such a life. Gong Wumei looked at Ning Shu, and his beautiful face had a tempting and bewitching look. "If the beauty is willing, I will naturally be willing to satisfy you." "Ning Shu, hihi, I politely decline. You are too dirty." Gong Wumei's face trembled, and he laughed again. He said to his subordinates, "In any case, they have served me for so long. Just kill them directly. Otherwise, I will feel uncomfortable waiting for death." Yes. Gong Wumei's subordinates pulled out their swords, and without caring about the struggles of these women, they directly pierced their hearts. Blood splattered all over the ground, and after struggling for a while, these women stopped breathing. The air was instantly filled with a thick smell of blood. Gong Wumei stroked his sleeves, and with a frown he said, "Hurry up and clean them up." Chapter 183. Ning Shu stayed in Wuyang Palace. Gong Wumei treated Ning Shu as his doctor, a reserve member of the harem. If something really happened, Ning Shu would probably be pounced on. Ning Shu touched the poison sewn into his clothes. This bastard really dared to use force on him. Ning Shu wanted to make his blood vessels burst. No, burst his liver. Now Gong Wumei was probably rolling around with another woman. The pitiful thing was that these women were robbed of their lives by Gong Wumei not long after. What kind of evil art was Gong Wumei practicing? It directly robbed a woman of her yin essence and stripped her of her vitality. Why didn't this bastard practice the sunflower manual? Everything would be solved if he got rid of the root. In the plot, Mu Yanluo had the same fate as these women. She was captured by Gong Wumei and had sex with him day and night. What surprised Gong Wumei was that Mu Yanluo was very durable. Other women would weaken after a short period of time, but Mu Yanluo didn't have such symptoms at all. Moreover, every time he rolled around with Mu Yanluo, his luck would be exceptionally smooth. She was simply a treasure. From then on, Mu Yanluo was imprisoned by Gong Wumei and treated as a sex slave. It was simply too shameful. Ning Shu clutched his chest, feeling very stifled. The female lead's body was like a cheat. Miss Little Red, our sect master wants you to go over. A disciple of the demon sect outside said to Ning Shu. Ahem. Ning Shu coughed, tidied his clothes, and followed the disciple to Gong Wumei's room with his medicine box. Although it was in a cave, the decorations were very beautiful. There was a small bridge overflowing water, a rockery garden, and some women in the garden. When they saw Ning Shu, they sized him up. Are you new? A woman stopped Ning Shu. Ning Shu asked, Are you here to compete with me for the position of sect master? Ning Shu was speechless. What the hell? Ning Shu pulled the woman's wrist and checked her pulse. He then shook his head. This was another woman who had slept with Gong Wumei. This woman was better than the previous ones. If she didn't sleep with Gong Wumei, she might be able to live a little longer. Ning Shu looked at the women in the garden and shook his head. Maybe one of them would be thrown out like the previous woman, living a life worse than death. I'm asking you a question. Are you also the woman that the hierarch brought to the Endless Palace? The woman Ning Shu asked. She stared at Ning Shu's face with eyes full of jealousy. Are you going to the sect leader's room now? Ning Shu naturally saw the jealousy in this woman's eyes. Truly, a pitiful person must have a hateful side. She actually envied him because of that rotten Gong Wumei. Ning Shu ignored her. When the woman saw Ning Shu's expression, she curled her lips and said, What's there to be proud of? When the cult master takes you, you'll still stick to him. I'm talking to you. Why are you leaving? Stop right there. The woman wanted to reach out and grab Ning Shu. The demonic sect disciple beside Ning Shu shouted coldly at the woman. Impudent. Steward Lu. The woman gave a flattering smile to the demonic sect disciple and asked, Why isn't the hierarch looking for me? Steward Lu's eyes flashed with disdain. The hierarch naturally has something to do. You just have to wait. Yes. Ning Shu looked at this woman. She wasn't very beautiful. At most, she could be considered a pretty girl from a humble family. He could tell that she had fallen in love with Gong Wumei. That bastard Gong Wumei was really a sinner. Not only did he defile these women's bodies, but he also cheated their hearts. Gong Wumei's face was too impactful. Very few women could control themselves. Ning Shu brought her to Gong Wumei's room. When they walked to the door was wide open. Ambiguous sounds came from inside. Separated by the light muslin bed, there was a vague figure moving. The posture was seductive. There were moans, gasps, and ambiguous sounds of skin touching skin. Ning Shu felt very stifled. Why did he have to force her to see this kind of scene every time? Miss Little Red, please go in. The hierarch is waiting for you inside. Steward Lu said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu pointed inside and said in astonishment, Go in now? Don't you want to wait for your hierarch to finish? Since you are here, just come in. Gong Wumei's deep and gloomy voice that was slightly gasping for breath sounded out. Steward Lu slightly bent his waist. Ning Shu made a please gesture. Ning Shu carried the medicine box and entered. Upon entering, Ning Shu smelled a strange smell. It was really unbearable. Come closer. How are you going to diagnose me if you are standing so far away? Gong Wumei's voice was somewhat suppressed. Ning Shu said, Come over here and check my pulse. Fuck, his taste is not ordinary. He even wants someone to observe him. Seriously. Ning Shu lifted the light muslin and saw that on the spacious bed, Gong Wumei's entire body was covered in a layer of pink. When she turned her head to look at Ning Shu, she bit her lips tightly and had a charming expression on her face. Ning Shu felt that he had been led astray by these people. In the past, Renbachian was very simple and pure. But now, when he saw this kind of scene, he didn't even blush and his heart didn't even skip a beat. Ning Shu sat on a chair at the side. When he saw that there were fruits on the table, he picked one up and wiped it on his clothes. Then he started nibbling on the fruit, looking at Gong Wumei who was on the bed. Ning Shu looked at Gong Wumei, who was constantly changing positions and tormenting the woman, causing her face to turn green. What are you showing off for? Isn't it good to have a man on top and a woman on the bottom? You already have a weak kidney, yet you are still tormenting like this. Seriously, Ning Shu didn't know what to say. Ning Shu crunched on the fruit and looked at the person on the bed who was tormenting the woman. Gong Wumei turned his head and looked at Ning Shu who was nibbling on the fruit. Gong Wumei's eyes were unfocused. Gong Wumei let out a low roar. He raised his head and looked refreshed. His body was dripping with sweat. When he shook his head, water droplets came out. Ning Shu looked at Gong Wumei. It was finally over. The woman also looked relieved. As soon as Gong Wumei was done, someone immediately came in and wrapped the woman in a blanket. Then, they took her away and opened the window to let in some fresh air. This Gong Wumei was simply living like an emperor. Ning Shu put the fruit pit on the table and wiped his hands. He asked Gong Wumei, "Do you feel dizzy?" Gong Wumei wasn't wearing any clothes. He only used a thin blanket to cover the ugly thing between his legs. His body had a strong smell of hormones. Sweat slid down his chest, and he looked especially seductive. When Gong Wumei heard Ning Shu's words, he hooked up his pink lips. "Do I look dizzy to you? Go and wash up. Look at how weak your kidney is. I am a doctor. You'd better listen to me." Ning Shu shook his head and said to Gong Wumei, "Do you need me to treat you or not? Do you want to use women to suppress your internal injuries for the rest of your life? What if you're old and can't do it anymore? What will you do? Just wait for your liver to explode and die. Besides, if you don't control yourself, your thing won't be able to do it anymore. You're going to die. Rolling around with women every day is just a temporary solution." Ning Shu tried her best to persuade him. Chapter 184. Gong Wumei completely built his happiness on top of a woman's pain. When he was possessed, he had to roll around with a woman. Not only could he heal his internal injuries, he could also feel pleasure. It was simply too beautiful. Gong Wumei sat on the bed. His face was flushed red. When he heard Ning Shu's words, he looked at Ning Shu with a pair of blurry eyes. "Are you saying that because you're jealous of that woman just now? Jealous that I'm together with her and didn't pamper you? Are you unhappy?" Gong Wumei touched his chin and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. His heart didn't waver at all. He even wanted to laugh. "Thank you for your grace. Tisk tsk tisk." Gong Wumei supported his chin. "You said that you're quite beautiful. In this endless palace, there isn't a single woman who can compare to you. But the moment you open your mouth, you completely destroy the feeling. Do you know that you should be gentle, elegant, and have the weakness of a beauty? But I feel that your appearance and your personality don't match at all. A beauty should have the appearance of a beauty." Ning Shu touched his own face. "Anything a beauty does can be forgiven. I'm beautiful, I'm proud. I have the looks, I'm willful. I can do whatever I want." Gong Wumei sneered. "I like your style. I really want to find a group of men to take turns with this person, who is as beautiful as a woman." Gong Wumei laid down with an enchanting posture. His black hair spread out on the bed. His eyebrows were like a painting. He was simply too beautiful. At Gong Wumei, Ning Shu reached out his hand and said, "Let's take his pulse now. To be honest, after seeing you, I don't even want to do those women anymore. Compared to you, they are too ugly." Ning Shu's heart didn't waver. He just treated Gong Wumei as a fart. Ning Shu put his hand on Gong Wumei's pulse and carefully felt Gong Wumei's pulse. Gong Wumei supported his chin as he looked at Ning Shu. His eyes swept over Ning Shu's face inch by inch. After that, he blew a mouthful of hot air towards Ning Shu's face. "The more I look at you, the more beautiful you are. My heart is really moved." Ning Shu fanned the hot air that Gong Wuxia exhaled. She was about to break down. "Didn't I tell you that you have bad breath? Why do you always like to blow at people?" Can you at least consider if other people can stand it? Ning Shu let go of Gong Wumei's pulse. Gong Wumei looked at Ning Shu lazily. How is it? Can it be cured? Of course it can be cured. However, you have to listen to me. Ning Shu had an unfathomable expression. After it is cured, not only will your internal injuries be gone, your martial arts will also improve. You won't need to roll around with women every day. Are you sure you want to be cured? Gong Wumei sat up and looked at Ning Shu seriously. Can it really be cured? Even your master can't do it. How can you do it? My master is too lazy to treat you. My master prides himself on being from a righteous sect. Naturally, he won't say anything to someone like you who kills people like flies. Ning Shu almost described the godly doctor as the embodiment of justice. Gong Wumei sneered. That iceberg is definitely not like what you said. Righteous sect. Beauty, are you trying to make me laugh? Then I will believe you this time. If there is any problem, I will immediately rape you and kill you. After that, I will peel off your skin and keep it well. Gong Wumei's voice was sexy as he spoke vicious words. Coupled with his picturesque face, he really looked like a man-eating flower in disguise. Ning Shu smiled and said, As long as you do as I say, you will naturally be cured. If you can't be cured, I will kill myself. You don't have to do anything. Beauty, how can I bear to let you die? Gong Wumei stretched out his hand, wanting to touch Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu took a step back to avoid Gong Wumei. He said indifferently, You touched your dick but didn't wash your hands. As a doctor, I suggest you be clean. Gong Wumei. First of all, the first step of treatment is to not sleep with women. Ning Shu said in a deadpan manner. Gong Wumei raised his eyebrows. If my injury flares up and there is no woman, do you want to see me explode and die? Do you want me to die? Gong Wumei's voice was very cold. Looking at Ning Shu, his eyes were filled with killing intent. Ning Shu's face was expressionless as she faintly said, Every time your qi is disorderly, you release it in this way. It's a kind of harm to you and the woman you have intercourse with. I've said it before, since I've become your doctor, I'll naturally be responsible for you. This is my medical ethics as a doctor. When Ning Shu said this, his face emitted a holy radiance, making him look imposing and tall. I will believe you this time. If anything happens, I will cook you and eat you. I don't know how your snow-white and tender skin will taste. I want to eat you right now. Crazy perverted heart. In order to show your determination to treat me, you should send all the women in your palace away. What if you can't control yourself and roll with them? You should send them away. Ning Shu looked at Gong Wumei and said. Gong Wumei's face suddenly revealed a smile. It was like a poisonous but beautiful flower slowly blooming. However, his voice was incomparably cold. Beauty, are you jealous of those women? Do you want to save them? Or are you really thinking for me? No matter what your goal is, I will tell you. If you need to treat me, then treat me. Don't think too much. My temper is not good. If you anger me, the consequences will be serious. Ning Shu was expressionless. I am not related to those women. Why should I save them? Do I look that saintly? Do I look that kind-hearted and lovable? Gong Wumei looked at Ning Shu indifferently. No matter what your goal is, I will tell you. In my territory, you don't have the right to bargain with me. Even if you want to save those women, do you think those women will be willing to leave? This place is as happy as the immortals. There are bejeweled palaces, delicacies, gorgeous clothes and jewelry. There is also a man like me who will pamper them. Do you think those women will be willing to leave? Moreover, those who have already lost their chastity will only be ridiculed by others. Who caused all of this? Ning Shu looked at Gong Wumei's complacent appearance and felt nauseous. She had never seen such a shameless person. He was clearly doing something worse than a beast, yet he could still be so shameless. Ning Shu felt that she was too young. Compared to Gong Wumei, she was really a good person. Ning Shu was almost moved to tears. Let's start the treatment from tomorrow. Ning Shu carried the medicine box and was about to leave. Then, she turned around and said to Gong Wumei, If you don't take a bath and disinfect yourself after having sex, your dick will rot. Ning Shu walked out of Gong Wumei's room. When she passed by the garden, she saw many women playing in the garden. There were many devil sect's disciples guarding them. Most likely, they were there to prevent them from running away. Perhaps some women were really enjoying themselves. Chapter 185. Ning Shu didn't have any thoughts of saving the common people. And she also couldn't save these women. If she had the ability to kill everyone, the first thing she would do would be to cut off Gong Wumei's right and wrong roots, so that his 6 roots would be at peace. Speaking of which, does Ning Shu have the ability to treat Gong Wumei's internal injuries? No, she doesn't. She can treat wounds right now, and she can write prescriptions for cold and flu. Treating such a high-level illness like an internal injury, Ning Shu can only say that she is a blind cat that stumbles upon a dead mouse. Ning Shu now goes in and out of Gong Wumei's room every day to treat him and write prescriptions for Gong Wumei. However, they were all prescriptions for promoting blood circulation and removing blood stasis. Gong Wumei looked at Ning Shu with a smile that is not a smile. Is this how you treat me? I have already shown these prescriptions to other doctors, and they are all ordinary prescriptions. Are you sure you want me to drink these prescriptions? Ning Shu's expression didn't change at all, and she said indifferently, What's wrong with these prescriptions? You originally had an internal injury, and your meridians are blocked. Your body also has blood stasis. As long as you spit out the blood stasis, you will be fine. Didn't you see the heroes that were injured on TV? They only needed to spit out a mouthful of black blood to recover from their injuries. What you said is actually quite reasonable. Gong Wumei drank the medicine in the bowl in one gulp, then sat on the chair with his eyes closed and his brows tightly knitted. Ning Shu looked at his appearance and asked, Is it very bitter? Eat a candy. Gong Wumei opened his eyes and looked at Ning Shu, then took the plum from Ning Shu's hand and said indifferently, Have you fallen in love with me? Why are you trying to curry favor with me like this? Ning Shu. After drinking the medicine, Gong Wumei's expression didn't look good. He waved his hand and told Ning Shu to scram. Ning Shu took the medicine box and quickly left. After coming out of Gong Wumei's room, Ning Shu was stopped by a woman. It was the woman from before. Her eyes were filled with admiration for Gong Wumei. Ning Shu instantly felt that this person was here to pick a fight with her. Ning Shu lightly said, Don't talk to me. I don't want to talk to you. And don't ask me if I'm Gong Wumei's woman. And don't ask me if I've ever rolled with him. The woman holding on to Ning Shu was stunned. She then asked Ning Shu, Do you see the cult master every day? I want to know how the cult master is doing now. Why haven't you come looking for me for so long? If you want to know, then go find it yourself. Don't ask me. I don't know anything. Ning Shu thought for a moment, then took out a pill from the medicine box and gave it to her. This thing can help with your beauty. Here you go. The woman was stunned for a moment. She took the pill and said, Thank you. Ning Shu saw that she casually put away the medicine bottle and knew that she wouldn't eat it. Ning Shu didn't care whether she ate it or not. She was just helping out casually. If the other party didn't accept it, Ning Shu wouldn't force it. She would save herself, and the other party would save her. These were all pills that could nourish her qi and regulate her body. They were good for her body. Ning Shu took the medicine box and left. He returned to his room. Just as he sat down, Gong Wumei's number 1 lackey, Steward Lu, came. Ning Shu hurriedly said, Miss Little Red, the cult master's illness has flared up. He needs a woman to serve him now. Ning Shu immediately took the medicine box and rushed to Gong Wumei's room. When he arrived at Gong Wumei's room, Gong Wumei's eyes were tearing apart a woman's clothes. Gong Wumei's eyes were red, and his entire body was filled with a violent and chaotic aura. The woman under Gong Wumei was the woman that Ning Shu gave the pill to. At this moment, she was looking at Gong Wumei affectionately. Ning Shu rushed over and directly pulled the woman up. He said to Steward Lu, Take her away. Impudent, I want to see who dares. Gong Wumei's eyes were red. The woman grabbed by Steward Lu anxiously said to Steward Lu, Steward Lu, I'm willing to serve the cult master. Beauty, since you chased her away, you can replace her. Gong Wumei and Ning Shu stretched out their hands. Their eyes were even redder, like a wild beast that was about to devour a person. Hearing that Ning Shu was going to replace her, the woman immediately looked at Ning Shu with eyes full of jealousy and hatred. Ning Shu looked at Gong Wumei. First he covered his nose, then he sprinkled the medicinal powder. Gong Wumei didn't care about the medicinal powder, but not long after, his body became soft. Drag him into the ice water, Ning Shu said to Steward Liu. With a splash, Gong Wumei was thrown into the ice water. Gong Wumei shivered. His pair of peach blossom eyes looked at Ning Shu sinisterly and ruthlessly. You don't want to live anymore. You actually dare to treat this sovereign like this. Ning Shu faintly said. All of this is to treat your illness. Besides, you promised me that you wouldn't touch women. Once your illness acts up, you forget everything. Ning Shu then fed Gong Wumei a bowl of bitter medicinal liquid. Gong Wumei choked to the point that tears came out. He looked at Ning Shu very malevolently and said, This sovereign wants you to die. Don't be angry. Ning Shu quickly inserted silver needles into Gong Wumei's head. Later, your blood vessels will really burst. Gong Wumei's body was slightly shivering. Even the muscles on his body were moving. His expression was somewhat painful. However, his body was soft and he couldn't exert any strength. The current Gong Wumei was in a lot of pain. Ding abuse points 10. Ning Shu moi, you haven't seen me for so long. Did you miss me? 2333's voice sounded in Ning Shu's head. It made Ning Shu's ears ring. Ning Shu! Scram. 2333. Ning Shu saw that Gong Wumei's head was smoking. He quickly added ice into the bathtub. Gong Wumei looked at Ning Shu with red eyes. You better pray that you can see the sun tomorrow. Gong Wumei's voice was trembling. It seemed that he was enduring some kind of pain. Moreover, the little Gong Wumei was still very perky. Ning Shu inserted some silver needles into Gong Wumei's arm. Then, he fed Gong Wumei 2 bowls of medicinal liquid. Gong Wumei was very tired. His shining peach blossom eyes were dim. Ning Shu fed Gong Wumei medicine every hour. This made Gong Wumei's face turn green. Sect leader, are you feeling better? Ning Shu asked Gong Wumei with a professional expression. Is the qi still running around in your body? Gong Wumei frowned. He shook his head and said, Much better. It doesn't seem like the conflict is that bad. That's good. Ning Shu nodded. Then, he removed the silver needles from Gong Wumei's arm and head. Ning Shu knew that it wasn't because of his treatment. It was because Gong Wumei's body was weak. He didn't have the strength to circulate his qi. The more he circulated his qi, the greater the conflict in his body. Sect leader, every time you open it, you have to hold it in. Don't release it. Do you understand? Hold it in, hold it in. Ning Shu said to Gong Wumei. What he meant was that when Gong Wumei wanted to release, he had to hold it in. When he wanted to ejaculate, he had to hold it in. Why? Gong Wumei looked at Ning Shu maliciously. Although he didn't rely on intercourse with a woman to get through the crisis this time, it made Gong Wumei feel exceptionally painful. He didn't have the pleasure of intercourse with a woman at all. Gong Wumei looked at Ning Shu with an extremely unhappy gaze. Chapter 186. Ning Shu ignored Gong Wumei's murderous gaze and said to Gong Wumei, This is all your energy. If you want to completely cure your illness, you have to calm down the chaotic aura in your body. You also have to repair your body that was damaged by the aura. The loss of your profound qi is not good for your body. Ning Shu started to talk nonsense. Gong Wumei was livid and didn't say anything. Then Ning Shu smiled wickedly. Then what should I do now? It can't be like this forever. Gong Wumei pointed at his crotch and slightly raised his chin. Ning Shu said ambiguously, You're responsible for making it go down. Ning Shu, haha. Endure it. Didn't I say that you have to endure it in the future? If you really can't stand it, you can rub it off yourself. But you must not release it. You must not. Ning Shu didn't look embarrassed at all. Gong Wumei lay softly beside the bathtub and looked at Ning Shu. Are you a woman or not? I'm a doctor. Men and women are nothing in my eyes. Ning Shu was very calm. Gong Wumei frowned tightly and seemed to be very uncomfortable. Ning Shu encouraged Gong Wumei. Come on. Endure it. Gong Wumei. Gong Wumei was a martial artist after all. The effect of the bone-softening powder soon disappeared. When Gong Wumei stood up from the bathtub, Ning Shu took the medicine box and ran away. She didn't dare to face Gong Wumei when he was fine. Usually, Ning Shu didn't dare to get close to Gong Wumei. When Gong Wumei was distracted, she poured him many bowls of medicine with Coptis chinensis. She was afraid that Gong Wumei would punish her later. Probably because Gong Wumei was used to being unrestrained in the past. Even if he wasn't sick, he still wanted to have sex with women. Every time he wanted to have sex with a woman, Ning Shu would appear and nag at Gong Wumei to endure it. Endure it. You're releasing your profound qi. Endure it. You can't have sex. If you do that, all your previous efforts will be wasted. Are you a man or not? If you can't control your crotch, you're a failure. Do you want to be a failure? Every time Gong Wumei was aroused, Ning Shu would nag at him, which made Gong Wumei feel like he was going crazy. There were countless times when he wanted to reach out and break this woman's neck, but when he thought of his internal injuries, Gong Wumei restrained himself. Sometimes, Gong Wumei's little brother was in high spirits for the whole day, and he had to hold it in and not release it. Then, the time he stood erect was a little too long, which made Gong Wumei's face turn blue. The most obvious manifestation was that Gong Wumei's chin had acne. His hormones were out of balance, and his little brother's walking posture was very strange when he stood up. Ning Shu's heart was also very bitter. She didn't know how long she could coax him. Every time Gong Wumei's internal injuries acted up, Ning Shu would throw him into a bathtub with floating ice cubes. She mixed the bone-softening powder in the medicine in advance. Otherwise, if Gong Wumei went crazy, she would be in trouble. Every time Gong Wumei's illness acted up, it was very scary. Ning Shu could only continuously feed him medicine. These medicine were all mixed with the bone-softening powder. Ning Shu found that when Gong Wumei's internal injuries acted up, the symptoms of qigong deviation would be reduced a lot. To put it bluntly, it made him have no strength to go crazy. On the surface, Ning Shu still had to pretend to be confident. In fact, there was only one way to treat Gong Wumei's internal injuries, and that was to abolish his martial arts. However, Ning Shu didn't dare to say it. Once she said it, Gong Wumei would abolish her first. At that time, she had bragged that she could cure him. Now, if she told Gong Wumei that she wanted to abolish his martial arts, Gong Wumei would kill her countless times. As the leader of the devil sect, not having martial arts was simply seeking death. Even if Gong Wumei endured the pain of his internal injuries, he would never abolish his martial arts. Ning Shu would wait for those righteous sects to attack Wuyang Palace. At that time, she would take advantage of the chaos to escape. Beauty, come here. Gong Wumei beckoned to Ning Shu. Ning Shu slowly walked to Gong Wumei's side. Suddenly, she smelled a strange smell on Gong Wumei's body. It smelled like he had peed in his pants. Gong Wumei's smile was devilishly charming and languid. An emerald green hairpin rotated around his jade-white fingertips. Gong Wumei extended his hand and inserted the hairpin into Ning Shu's hair bun. He faintly said, "This hairpin is perfect for you." Ning Shu immediately felt her hair stand on end. She felt that this guy was up to no good. Ning Shu really wanted to pull out the hairpin and throw it away. Gong Wumei elegantly sat on the chair. His peach blossom eyes stared blankly at Ning Shu. Ning Shu asked, "Do you have any business with me?" "I just want to ask, what did you add in the medicine?" Gong Wumei lazily asked. Ning Shu's face trembled. Could it be that he discovered that the cartilage in the medicine was scattered? Ning Shu very calmly and confidently said, "I didn't add anything." "Beauty, you are not telling the truth. I had the doctor take a look. I added a large amount of Coptis." Gong Wumei sinisterly looked at Ning Shu. "You are not being honest. Coptis is bitter in nature. However, to clear away heat and detoxify, I specially added Coptis. The other doctors said that you cannot eat this Coptis. Don't worry, everything I do is for your own good." Ning Shu extended his hand and wanted to pat Gong Wumei's shoulder. However, once he got close to Gong Wumei, Ning Shu smelled a strange smell. Ning Shu retreated 2 steps. "Don't you take a shower? Why do you have the smell of urine on your body?" Gong Wumei's face immediately distorted, and his face was filled with killing intent. "Beauty, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't speak whatever you want. Previously, you said that I have bad breath. And now, you are saying that I have the smell of urine on my body. Tell me, how should I punish you? Ningshu asked. Sect Master, I am speaking the truth. If there is anything wrong with you, just tell me. The smell on your body. Only eunuchs who can't stop urinating would have this smell. You are in perfect condition. So why do you have this smell on your body? When Gong Wumei heard Ningshu comparing him to eunuchs, his face became ashen and sinister. You can give it a try if I am a eunuch or not. No need, I am just worried about you. It's fine as long as you are fine. Ningshu waved his hand. Take a shower more often. I am speaking the truth. Your body really has a smell. If there is anything, you can come and look for me. After Ningshu finished speaking, he immediately left. Then, he heard a crackling sound in the room. He reckoned that it was Gong Wumei who was smashing things. Then Gong Wumei roared, causing the disciples of the devil sect to rush into Gong Wumei's room. They thought that something happened to their respected sect master. Ningshu stopped his footsteps. What is Gong Wumei's situation now? Could it be that Gong Wumei's that thing was broken? Could it be that he was holding it back? This is impossible, right? The male lead is awesome. Even if he is missing an arm or a leg, he can't do it. Could it be that he was really holding it back for a while? Ningshu used the excuse of preserving his vitality to let Gong Wumei have less intercourse. He also had the intention of tormenting him. Then Ningshu felt that it was impossible. It was just a period of time when he did not have sex. How could he hold it back? What would a virgin like him think? However, seeing that Gong Wumei was so irritable, it was better to put more poison on his body. He had to think about his own life. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.